web, on the Parliament's YouTube channel ParlView, or via our website www.ttparliament.org. We are just a few seconds away from 1:45 p.m., which is the expected time of resumption of today's sitting of the House of Representatives and the budget debate for fiscal 2017.
Speaker.
Now return to our coverage of the fourth sitting of the House in the second session of the 11th Parliament that takes place on Friday, October 7th, 2016.
Yes, good afternoon. We can resume. And I recognize Honorable Member for Naparima.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, thank you very much. Let me first congratulate the MP for Siparia and indeed all my colleagues for representing the perspectives of the vast majority of citizens who believe that this government is clueless, bankrupt of ideas, lacking in vision, leadership, and inability to implement ideas that can take us forward. My political leader, the Deputy Speaker, articulated forcefully the emergence of a supra-elitist element, which some have called a parasitic oligarchy. The MP for Siparia also showed in ways subtle and overt how the PNM regime is in cahoots with, actively supports, and possibly benefits from a mutually beneficial relationship.
Mr. Speaker, Standing Order 4410, please.
You did not request permission?
Can I ask for permission?
As stated yesterday, you're supposed to ask up front.
Sit down,
right?
sir.
You're supposed to ask up front. Right? In this instance, I'll give way, but honorable members, please inquire prior to your discourse for permission to speak, please, according to the standing order. 4410. Okay? 4410.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker. More importantly, Mr. Deputy Speaker, my political leader debunked PNM propaganda of waste, mismanagement, and corruption by demonstrating with copious data how all revenues earned were spent for the people, on behalf of the people, and for the benefit of the citizenry of Trinidad and Tobago through salaries and emoluments, through transfers and subsidies to state enterprises, through major capital projects for all of us to see through the length and breadth of Trinidad and Tobago, and transfer payments to eradicate poverty and reduce income inequality. We spent the money wisely. We accounted for the money that we earned from the taxpayer. And she showed through data that we spent the money in the interest of the citizenry. Before I get into my substantive contribution, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I would like to deal with the presentation by the member for Diego Martin Central, who sought to praise himself, who sought in a very pedestrian way to offer me a job. I wish to tell him that I have worked with the likes of Andrew Rose, Richard Toby, Noel Wyatt, Victor Mute. I have interacted and worked for the President of the General Assembly of the United Nations, a former foreign minister of Serbia, and the person who came second to the Secretary General in this election to replace Ban Ki-moon.
Not as an OJT.
I'm also been invited by King Felipe VI de Bourbon.
You hear that? You hear that?
And I can tell him that given those credentials, I can tell the Honorable Member for Digo Martin Central that I will not work for the likes of, and I say no more. I will also like to tell him that you do not fill a UNC swimming pool and claim it as a PNM mega project. And I would like to ask him at the same time, if the first person to use the pool was a non-citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. So I suspect he may wish to answer that question. And furthermore, he talked about people, the minister, for the Honorable Member for Digo Martin Central, talked about people being embarrassed to wear jerseys of the Ministry of Sports. Well, I can tell him that second-generation Trinidadians in Toronto and Miami are embarrassed to wear Trinidad Olympic jerseys. They're wearing those of Usain Bolt of Jamaica. And I wish to say that our sportsmen.
Okay, don't worry. I'm in control. Proceed, Honorable Member.
I looked on with patriotism as Michelle Lee Ahi ran her soul out in the 100 and 200 meters. And Marshal Sideno ran unsupported by a government and a ministry. And therefore, if we look at performance, and performance beats old talk any day, his predecessor in 2014, in 2012, got 4 medals. 4 medals. A gold, 2 silver, and a bronze. And under his stewardship, for 1 year, we got 1 bronze. And may I say, this has nothing to do with the athletes who try their best, but they must have a facilitative environment in which to excel at the global level. I expected to hear an architecture for sports. How can sports help in solving crime by giving our young citizens a hope, self-empowerment, a sense of doing something worthwhile? I wanted to hear his contribution to helping us with the major problem we face with crime. I heard nothing. Very, very pedestrian. I also heard, Mr. Deputy Speaker, from my colleague from Maruga Tableland, about, he's talking about,
Forget him.
in a very pedestrian way, about coming to fool the people of Maruga Tableland by saying that he's going to give them a fishing port. I wish to draw for the enlightenment of the honorable member, an article in the Trinidad Guardian dated Wednesday, 29th August 2007. And its headline, MP Franklin Khan's farewell gift, 150 million fishing port for Maruga. They quote him by saying, and I quote, "This will be the most important project for Maruga people. They don't ask for much, but a lot will be given to them. I have the design of the port. It is impressive."
What date is that?
That date is 29th August 2007. Mr. Deputy Speaker, they have been fooling the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago and fooling the people of Maruga by promising them a port and taking 9 years to bring it to fruition. I would just want to say, he says the fishing port is expected to cost 150 million. It will be the largest in the Eastern Caribbean. It will accommodate 175 pirogues. Work is expected to start in the first quarter of 2008. the PNM fools.
Promises never.
Promises never materialize.
Member, retract that word for me, please. You know which word?
PNM?
You know which word?
I withdraw.
It's a verb, not a noun.
The project will be handled by the National Energy Corporation. Mr. Deputy Speaker, under the IDF in this budget, no monies have been allocated specifically for the building of a port in Maruga. I come to the substantive part of my presentation, and in doing so, I quote from the book of Matthew, chapter 26, verse 29. And this is going to give the philosophical framework behind their budget. And I quote, Mr. Deputy Speaker, although in this context, they were speaking about the talents given to people, 10 talents, and one was given less, and a little. And in the Bible, it is said that those who work hard, unlike the PNM next door, who think, who exercise brains, will be given a lot. This verse is particularly relevant to this budget we have. And I quote,
Read it.
Matthew 26, verse 29. For unto everyone that hath shall be given, and he shall have abundance. But for him that hath not shall be taken away even that which he hath. End of the lesson. I will read it again. For everyone that hath, and here I can speak about what my political leader calls the supra-elitist club. For everyone, or the 1%, for everyone that hath shall be given, and he shall have abundance. And from him that hath not shall be taken away even that which he hath. Why do I say that in the context of this budget? King James Version. Every element of that budget was taken from the poor and given to those that have. The increase in diesel, I have been informed that 90% of vehicles in Trinidad and Tobago are either maxi taxis or commercial vehicles which use diesel. If you increase the price of diesel, maxi taxis and transport, and I understand that they have said they're going to hold their hand and wait and see how the thing evolves. I hope they do so. But any increase in price of the commercial vehicles will have a multiplier effect on those who have not. Food cards have been taken away and disability grants. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, they laud it as an accomplishment how they have cleaned the books. I have in the constituency of Naparima over 600 constituents who refuse to go to be insulted, as they said, because they knew they were not going to get food cards. They tell me, Mr. Charles, I have been fired from URP. If I come from Naparima, you are my MP. If I present myself, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to waste my time. And they take that as ghosts. People who do not trust the PNM and are not prepared to subject themselves to the treatment that they will dispense to them. The value-added tax. They say all kinds of things. One of the things that I predicted before the elections was that they were going to increase value-added tax on the citizenry. And as I spake to the multitude, it came to pass, Mr. Deputy Speaker. The property tax is taken from those who have not and given to them who have. You will say nonsense.
Hey.
Tea and tech.
What kind of language is that?
Excuse. Member, please, the crosstalk and shouting across the chamber, let's desist from it, please.
Thank you.
Go ahead, member for Naparima.
I went to Mausika. I went to Mausika with my friend from Arima, the MP from Arima. Slept through classes as he sleeps through Parliament, but I will say no more about that. But they have put us on alert that the subventions to TNTech and WASA are going to be reduced. And the net effect of that is they're going to bring increases to the users of electricity and water. ISIS. We have 9 citizens in Turkey. I saw today in the papers where the Minister of Foreign Affairs met with his colleague from Turkey on the margins of the UN General Assembly. But it took 4 months, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to find out. Up to today, 4 months after, we do not know the names of the citizens. We do not know if they took children with them. We do not know the conditions under which they are kept in Turkey. We do not know how they're going to return. And when they return, we do not know what we're going to do with them. That could only happen with a PNM government that doesn't care for the citizenry of Trinidad and citizens of the country. If those were Americans or British citizens, they would have at least sent an emissary to Turkey to find out the conditions under which they are kept.
A bit slow, you know.
But we have, Mr. Deputy Speaker, a Ministry of Foreign Affairs that hosts all-inclusive parties. That is what they're doing. Saturday, September the 3rd, from 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the residence of the High Commissioner for the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, 359 Buena Vista, Rotcliffe Park, Ottawa. Tickets, $75 Canadian. And I wish to ask the question. They talk about the TNT Association of Ottawa. I lived 5 years in Ottawa, and I don't know about this association, but it could have existed since I left. I would like to ask the question, is this a PNM party group? That's all I'm asking. And I'm asking if the funds here are going to build Balize House. Question. Instead of dealing with the needs of the citizenry, they're dealing holding fat, and more fat.
Read the Bible again.
75 Canadian.
Read the Bible again.
I sure poor people wouldn't get invited to this fete, because, as I said in the Bible, unto him that hath shall be given, and him that hath not shall be taken away, even that which he had. So the Children's Hospital, they're going to put it in a public-private partnership. They're going to take money from our taxes, our money, and put it in a public-private partnership, so that we will have to pay. We pay twice. We pay for the hospital, and we pay to use it, because they have to take from the poor and give to the rich. The school feeding program, the laptops. It was Eric Williams, the founder of the party. And I think if he came today, he would come on this side rather than on that side. The laptops are today what school books were when I was young. And at the UN and other places, they talk about, they don't talk about the rich and the poor. They talk about those who are internet connected and those who are not connected. That is in the new knowledge-driven era. In the new knowledge-driven era. It is knowledge that is going to differentiate the rich from the poor. As knowledge differentiates those on that side from those on this side. In my constituency, they cannot get medicine. The poor cannot get medicine for cancer, for diabetes, and for high blood pressure in the Lengua Health Facility. They are poor people. They are cane farmers, former cane farmers. They are the poor from whom, on that side, they want to extract money to give to their friends. And who are their friends? Sandals. They want to take prime property in Tobago and give to Sandals. Let me read something. I'm reading from Starbuck News, and it's 21st June 2016. And it says, and I'm just reading a little part with your approval. Sandals collects an Antigua and Bermuda sales tax from its customers. And according to Brown, and he's the Prime Minister, Gaston Brown, keeps 65% of the yields. The Antigua and Bermuda government is trying to change this, but Stewart is claiming it means rescinding of a concession agreement with Sandals. So they collect money and they do not pay. On that side, they do not read. They only heckle on that side. They don't read. There is a book, an authoritative book entitled Tourism and Responsibility, Perspectives from Latin America and the Caribbean by Mofford, Charlton, and Monk. And I quote from that book about tourism and responsibility. They say the Sandals resorts are all-inclusives, in which the needs and desires of tourists are met within the boundaries of the resort, and for which the tourist pays one fee at the booking stage. This effectively means that within the resort, guests can wander around without the need to carry money. Sandals boasts that their all-inclusives are more all-inclusive than all the other all-inclusives or ultra-inclusives, as Sandals, as an advertisement that they give out said. So that is a party of all-inclusive fete, and giving it to the all-inclusive, super or all-inclusive fete giver, Sandals. That book quotes Patullo, Polly Patullo. She says in her first edition of her book that when Sandals took over the La Toc Hotel in St. Lucia, La Toc in St. Lucia, in 1993, many of the 300 or so workers were allegedly not re-employed with the new company or were offered jobs in lower positions at lower rates. It says Sandals remains ununionized except in Antigua, the same place that called them for not paying sales tax. And she also found that all-inclusive hotels generate the largest amount of revenue, but their impact on the economy is smaller per dollar of revenue than other accommodations in the subsector. It also concluded that all-inclusives imported more and employed fewer people per dollar of revenue than other hotels. So here we are, taking from the land that God gave us and giving it to the wealthy, in this case, Sandals. But we have one Alexandra Place. Yesterday we learned the rent is $600,000 per month. So, and that has been locked down, and now we've been told that it was done above board, that the MP for San Fernando West recused himself, but he left Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West, to carry on the business, and I assume there is no interconnection with them, even though one is maybe the boss and not the other. And so $600,000 has been locked down to the wealthy, the 1%. And the poor are being told you can't get food cards. You have to pay more at T&Tech, possibly and WASA. You have to pay property tax. You have possibly to pay at the Children's Hospital. I have no problem if they deal with the elderly. I'm 66. So they could take gate and say nobody over 50 will get gate assistance. They deal with old people. But the young people, those who get the food cards, those who get the book grants, those who get the computers and the laptops, those are the people that should be given the benefits. I have in my constituency a Reform Hindu school, another school, Reform Hindu school. That school has 156 students from a rural, poor background. But that school, Reform Hindu school, performs in the top 5% of all the primary schools in Trinidad and Tobago. I'm proud to say we at Naparima are educated people who pay a lot in education. That school, under the People's Partnership, there's an arrangement with the Sanatan Dharma Mahasabha board, in which the board will give the land and the government will pay for the school. The school is 88% completed 5 months ago. Nothing has been done by that government because they have no interest in the poor, because there's a whole question of the wealthy the 1%. So if you come from Princestown and if you come from Naparima, you eat the bread that the devil need. You will not get help from this government. Fed and having a good time. Now, sometimes you would want to think that the problem with this budget is that they do not have the wicked and whatnot. It is not so, Mr. Speaker. I do verily believe it is not a question of wickedness. It's a question of lack of ability. It's vacuity of ideas. And I will just point out the qualifications, and I did it last year, I'll do it again. The qualifications of Minister of Finance, Trinidad and Tobago, and Singapore, the UK, Australia, and it's chalk and cheese. And they'd like to say, why do you go to Singapore? You know why I go to Singapore? In 1962, Singapore's GDP per capita was less than Trinidad and Tobago. Today, our GDP per capita is 16,000 US. In Singapore, it is 52,000 US. It is even higher than Canada, which has a GDP per capita of 50,000. So Singapore is better than Canada in terms of that criterion. But here the Minister of Finance. He has a degree in economics from the London School of Economics. He has a degree in economics, bachelor's from Cambridge, and a master's from Cambridge University. And he also went to Harvard. He was a coordinating minister for economic and social policies.
Excuse me, you are referring to? Who are you referring to with those qualifications? Okay, right. I just wanted to be sure. Okay.
Minister of Finance of Singapore.
Proceed.
Thank you very much. He is studying economics, not engineering, not journalism, not management. He's studying economics at Cambridge. He's studying it at London School of Economics and at Harvard. He was appointed internal peers by his peers as chairman of the International Monetary and Financial Committee, the key policy forum of the IMF. He chairs the International Academic Advisory Panel that advises the government on strategies for the university sector. And may I say that Singapore has 3 of the top universities in the world according to Times Higher Education.
Electronic device?
So he chairs that university advisory committee. And he chairs the International Advisory Council of the Singapore Economic Development Bank. So we see that the kinds of policy framework, the kinds of economic architecture, which is clearly missing in our budget, is manifestly obvious in that of Singapore and of Canada. Canada's Minister of Finance, he went to University of Western Ontario, studied at the London School of Economics and the Institut Européen d'Administration des Affaires, INSEAD, one of the best institutions in Europe. I was given this a gift by the Singaporean government. The Singapore Story, Memoirs of Lee Kuan Yew, which I read already. I'll lend it to you. You see, when you operate in a first world country, when you operate with people and who talk about ideas to take us to the next level, and you come and you hear pedestrian rantings, it bothers you. Because I have an interest in my country. So we come, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to the budget. And I deal specifically with the Ministry of National Security. And here I will show that our budget is mainly arithmetic. You take from here and you put there. You take from this, so you have to balance revenues and expenditure. There is no, what Lloyd Best would call, no trigonometry. There's no calculus. There is no architecture to take us forward. It is just bookkeeping, balancing the book. Taken from the poor and given to those who have. So here, let's look at how this thing does not make sense. And I speak specifically to the Ministry of National Security. If we have a problem with crime, if we have a problem with poor black youth essentially killing one another, shooting one another. And it is stated in reports, in academic reports and whatnot. Black on black crime. Would you decrease expenditure in MILAT, the military-led academic training that deals with at-risk youth? Would you decrease that by $5 million, Mr. Deputy Speaker? $5 million? Would you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, decrease by $23 million from last year to this year, funding to the Civilian Conservation Corps? These are institutions that deal with young people. I say we can't depend on sports because they have no architecture to link sports with reducing crime or to giving young people a sense of purpose and dignity in this country that God gave to them. They only care about the 1%, the parasitic oligarchy. They do not care about the youth from Beta. And by the way, the death, I understand there are 2 more deaths today. 2 more deaths. So far today, one from La Puerta and another from Beta. So as we speak, people are dying while we cut institutions that can help them to live a worthwhile life. Mr. Deputy Speaker, it does not make sense. The cadet force, I went to Naparima College. I would say one of the better schools, Naparima. We did not have a cadet force. Presentation College had. And they had the cadet corps. The cadet corps is used to give a sense of discipline, a sense of purpose, a sense of order and organization to young people. They decreased that by 1.2 million from 6.4 to 5.1. We are not saying don't cut, but the cutting must show an architecture. It must show a concern. It must show a purpose at the end of the day. So they cut the cadet force from 6.4 to 5.1 million. They cut the salaries for the cadet force by 1.36 million. But the Community Comfort Patrol Program, they decreased that, and I must be reading wrong, by 48.5 million. From 65 million in 2016, you cut the Community Comfort Patrol Program. But it doesn't end there. It doesn't end there. Crime Stoppers Trinidad and Tobago Limited, they decreased it by 1.7 million. Do they really care about crime that affects those that have not? Not at all. They put that money in SSA. They increased by 100, SSA increased by $179.2 million from 76 million to 255.2 million. I had to repeat that. They increased the spy agency that appoints a director, my friend, a good, decent man, I must say. He appoints the director of the SSA. The SSA reports to him, and it is reports to the Minister of Point Fortin, the Member of Parliament for Point Fortin, really sorry, and the Minister of National Security, right? The director of the SSA, the member for Point Fortin appoints him, and the director reports to you. But you increase him by $179.2 million. So they spy on us. Spying has more priority than cadet, than MILAT, than the Civilian Conservation Corps. You know what? It gets worse than that. The Office of Disaster Preparedness, they decreased the allocation by 16.7 million. We had a before.
Carney East, constantly. I need no assistant.
We have to thank God that Hurricane Matthew did not affect us. Yesterday, I was on the priority bus route, and we got into problems because of a drizzle. And when I went to Maritime Plaza it was about 3 feet high on a drizzle. So, but they have cut the Office of Disaster Preparedness by $16.7 million. Where is the architecture? But it gets worse, you know. It gets worse. The Forensic Science Center, which everybody knows is a problem. They cut materials and supplies by $700,000. $700,000 forensic science. Cut materials and supplies. At the same time, the TTPS, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, the official entertainment increased by $400,000.
That is planning.
You cut the forensic science, materials, and supplies by 700, and you increase the official entertainment of the police service by $400,000.
More wine and cheese.
But it gets worse again. You know, it gets worse. You almost want to cry if you have a sense of intellect. If I say, some of us say we pass for our first choice, you almost feel it, you shouldn't. The training of the fire service personnel was cut from $800,000 in 2016 to $800,000 to $500,000. This is the fire service personnel. Yesterday, first responders, 6 fire officers, 5 or 6, got into problems because they were electrocuted. But the training of these fire officers was reduced. It was reduced. So training of fire service personnel, reduced. Training of prison officers got nothing. Training of prison personnel got not a single cent. You know, you will cry. The establishment of police youth club facilities. The budget was $3 million last year. Only $1.3 million spent. It was reduced this year to $800,000. These are the establishment of police youth club facilities. The member from Moruga Tableland would know because he and I attended a function at the Barrackpore Secondary School, Barrackpore West Secondary School. And you saw the young people and the police trying to develop the community police idea by interacting with the young people as a crime-fighting strategy. This government, because they do not have an architecture, as Lloyd Best would say, they don't have an architect. It's killing all the institutions that exist to develop a sense of pride and dignity and self-empowerment and self-esteem among our young people. I saw something, but I didn't. It has to be wrong. The construction of the Point 14 fire station got nothing. So all the statements of love for the people and how you're going to solve their problems, there's nothing for the Point 14 fire station. So we are in a situation of problems. When you look at serious budgeting, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, you look at budget, the Indian government, what do they do? What are budgets supposed to do? And what is this bookkeeping document doing? It is supposed to promote economic growth. What are the projections of economic growth in this budget? And what is being done to stimulate growth? And what are the timelines? And what are the action plans? And how are you going to monitor these plans? Nothing. It is a vacuous document. It's clueless. Government by VAPs. Throw money, talk loud, talk down to you, and expect you to accept mediocrity. In India, the budget is supposed to reduce poverty and unemployment. This budget I have to read, man. I have to read my Bible. What it is again? 24. It is verse 24. Verse. Unto him that hath, to everyone that hath shall be given, and shall have in abundance. And from him that hath not shall be taken away even that which he hath. And I say this is in the context of those who have talents, but I'm using it specifically in the context of this budget. The third the third purpose of a budget is the reduction of inequalities and redistribution of income. So I am in Naparima, an agricultural constituency, and I have Mr. Shah Ali, is Mohammed, farmer, retired farmer, and he said, there is nothing in this budget for me. There is nothing. The money goes to the agro-processing part, and when they talk to you, you understand how this economy works for the rich. Even at the level of coconuts, you could have a coconut tree. They will pay you 80 cents per coconut and sell it in Port of Spain for $8 to $10. That is the markup. So if you are going to target poverty and you want to grow an industry, you are not only going to give, you're not only going to give agriculture only $700 wherever you give, compared to giving $7 billion to the Ministry of National Security. You do not only give them 700, 1/10. That speaks to a kind of lack of architecture. Lloyd Best used to say that we needed to change the eating habits of our country by having a sensible agricultural policy married to a school feeding program, so the children of our nation would learn to eat the foods that we produce. He said, because we eat what we do not consume. And that is one of the reasons why they fired the governor of the central bank, on a distortion that he created the foreign exchange problem. And that if you move him, the foreign exchange situation will be solved. It has gotten worse. He told us that the hemorrhaging of our foreign exchange because of our food import bills. And here's Lloyd Best talking about an architecture to change our food eating habits rooted in what we produce. So he said, like Rodney, it was Walter Rodney, we eat what we do not produce, and we produce what we do not consume. He wanted to change that, but you cannot, you will look in this budget and not see that kind of a trigonometry, that kind of an architecture. So we talk calculus, thank you. Redistribution of income, reallocation of resources. They speak about 6, financing and managing of public enterprises. And why is that? That is because we are not data driven. I'll give you, last year I asked the question, what is the optimum size of the police service in Trinidad? I get a lot of ramble and obfuscation. In Austin, they have 20 police officers per 10,000 of population. In Cincinnati, it's 32 per 10,000. In Colorado Springs, it is 15.5. In Miami, 24 police officers per 10,000 of population. You know what it is? In Trinidad, 65. So we do not know what is the optimum size. We recruited 500 last year. And when you ask them what is the basis for that recruitment, they can't tell you because they can't benchmark it with what's happening globally. So we have police upon police upon police, and the detection rate is less than 10%. When you don't have data, you recruit. And we have a situation where our whatever they say, it is not data-driven. So we talk about evidence-based policy making, and I won't go into detail. I'll make this available for them. As I say, they don't read; they just sit down and talk about of nonsense, and you have to sit here and tolerate that. Why evidence-based policy making they say it reduces wasteful spending, and they go on to give reasons. It expands innovative programs, and it strengthens accountability. For the last couple of minutes, Mr. Speaker, I'll go to my constituency. I want to put my colleague, the Minister of Education, on notice that I did on the 20th of January 2016, I did ask a question to the Minister. Could the Minister tell us when students of Barakpur Ashja Primary School will be properly accommodated? And he responded, and he gave his answer, but at the end he said, the new school will be completed within 10 months. That was on the 20th of January. We are now we're shy a couple days of 10 months. And I will be asking whether he did mislead us at that time or he probably didn't have the correct data. But I will be asking the question of the Barakpur Ashja Primary School. quote again, so that the new school will be completed within 10 months' time. Mr. Speaker, in terms of the Barkpo, our political leader had asked us to meet with constituents, and I met with constituents at the, which school was that? Oh no, it was at Vickers Recreation Club. And my constituents made the point that they wanted the Reform Hindu School completed. I spoke about that already. And the Early Childhood Center.
45 minutes has expired. You have 10 minutes. Would you like to avail yourself of them? Yes. 10 minutes.
Yes, sir.
Proceed.
They asked me to speak about the Reform Hindu School, which is 88% complete, and the Early Childhood Center, which is 99% complete, but has not been opened. And the only reason why it is 99% is because vines are growing in the school, and it's deteriorating as we speak. There's nothing. And Realize Road, there have been within the last 6 months about 6 home invasions. So I will ask the Minister of National Security to kindly check. Our citizens are asking. I represent Naparima, and I say I'll do all in my power to ensure that in my stay there, their views are represented, even though I may get comments from the other side. Young Avery Keshwa from Garth Road, Williamsville, was killed over a cell phone. I asked for a status report on his death. A Gasparillo businessman, Krishna Maraj, was killed by 2 gunmen, and his wife, Sabrina Khan, is left traumatized. My constituent, Shah Muhammad Ali of Lengua, reminded me that he needs to have to see in this government's budget, and this is where the citizenry begins talking with the leaders. They're saying they want to see some of the agricultural benefits going to the actual farmers. In Naparima, we have a number of farmers who have acquired 2-acre estates, ex-Caroni workers, and they are lying unused, abandoned, because they're not getting any help from the Ministry of Agriculture. One of my constituency, I had to listen to him. His wife died. His friend's wife recently died from cancer. Her husband had to travel to Barbados on 3 separate occasions for drugs at a cost of $2,400 US per trip. And his friend's wife died. The connector road from Barrackpore Police Station to the M1 Rig Road, which has cut down the travel time of some 7,000 Barrackpore residents to 25 minutes to get to the highway, has deteriorated. And I'm requesting that routine maintenance work take place to ensure that these residents do not suffer. Our residents of Naparima do not ask for much. We suffered when the P&M closed Caroni Limited. We lost the main employer in the constituency. Just as oil prices got reduced, we lost the show. But the resilience of the Naparima constituents showed, and that probably could be a template if we were minded to look indigenously and internally for solutions rather than the IMF. What did they do? They planted a garden, so they drove taxi, opened a parlor, work URP, CPEP, multiple jobs to get money. They worked and they saved. They didn't borrow to spend. They didn't go on a road show, the equivalent of a road show, and borrow $1,000 and say how great it is. You borrow money because they know we have collateral in the Heritage Fund and the foreign exchange reserves. So anybody will give Trinidad $1,000 million. Let our reserves that our leader Kamla Prasad Bisesa left. Let us not have that and see whether it would have been a success. And every time we go and every time we borrow, our credit, our debt to GDP ratio increases and our capacity to borrow decreases likewise. But our leader, and I'm always saying I'm proud to work with Kamla Prasad Bisesa. Proud. She had an anti-crime and administration of justice initiatives, pages long. and she funded this from revenues, and she saved money. She didn't borrow, and she had non-legislative efforts, creation of the Ministry of Justice, training of 2,000 special reserve officers, and I could go on, introduced 21st century police initiative. I could go National Operations Center, National Security Training Academy, the Rapid Response Unit. And Madam Speaker, it worked. The Highway Patrol, the Interagency Joint Patrols, the establishment of National Security Alert State, which increases or decreases on a basis of a threat analysis. The acquisition of 4 patrol vessels and 2 utility vessels. Establishment of the Private Security Network Commission. The training of crime scene investigators. On and on and on and on. This was done by an enlightened and visionary Kamala Prasad Bisesa. Improvements to the Forensic Science Center. New equipment, including a genetic analyzer, an ultraviolet spectrometer, a DNA extraction system, drug detection system were purchased. We could go on and on. The center's records were fully digitized, and laboratory information management system was put in place. 6 additional contract positions were created and filled. Health and safety officer, forensic exhibit clerk, forensic biologist 2, and scientific examiner narcotics 2. On and on. And the opening of Duncan Street Police Post and the construction of 8 other modern police stations. And they like to feel that we do it south of the Caroni. But Arima is number 1. Tell me if I'm wrong, my colleague from Arima. Piaco, Maloney, number 3. Kamuto, Brasso, Labre, Oropuch, and Maruga. I am a descendant, Madam Speaker, of the Americans from 5th Company. My colleague from Maruga Tableland is a descendant. I'm associated with the United National Congress. The United National Congress built 5th Company Baptist School. They built the Princess-Tongue Early Childhood Center in the Princess-Tongue Baptist Church. You could go and see it now. Jennifer Johnson, when she was minister under a NAR government, and she's a descendant of a Baptist, she built the Webb Memorial School. So out of 5 schools, Baptist, UNC, and NAR built the school. The PNM has done nothing. And I put him on notice. That he has, he's a minister in the Ministry of Education, that Cohen Hamilton needs a new building. Marak Baptist School is dilapidated. It's a disgrace. It's a shame for the Americans. I will give way.
Honourable Member, I will not, through you, Madam Speaker, I will not speak to you about your heritage because I know quite a bit about it. And I also know that your descendants have a particular view of your rantings and ravings. But let me put your concerns to rest. Recently, I have visited, as of this week, the Cohen Hamilton School. I spoke with the principal this week. I've had a number of discussions with her. We are aware of the building issue. As for Marak, I visited Marak last week. I'm aware of their concerns. So I'm also aware that the honourable member of Caroni East for years did not deliver furniture to the 5th Company Baptist School. So we are in the process of ensuring that that school has the requisite furniture now. So I am basically doing my job. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, I would prefer to hear that from his boss, the MP for Arima, and not the stepchild of the ministry. And it is my hope that the promises given today will not be like the Maruga port, which was given since 10 years ago, and we have not seen the light of day. But the record of the PNM for the Baptists in 5th Company in Maruga is dismal, Madam Speaker. So, where is it? This? So I was speaking about the the police station in Maruga and Oropucha and whatnot. We have extensions and modifications of the Forensic Science Center, relocation of the conference room, redesign of the photography section to accommodate secure evidence storage rooms for biology, chemistry, and toxicology sections. Refurbishment of the autopsy suite, approximately 98% complete. The Golden Grove prison, construction of a perimeter fence. Pages and pages of achievement. And that is only infrastructure changes, the legislative changes. Interception of Communication Act. Intercommunication Act. Firearms Amendment Act 2011. Financial Intelligence Unit Amendment Act 2011. Financial Intelligence Unit Amendment Act 2011. Number 2. Miscellaneous Provisions Remand Act 2010. The Bail Amendment Act 2012.
Your speaking time has expired.
Thank you, madam. Thank you very much.
Member for Tobago East.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg your leave on standing order 4410, please. Madam Speaker, before I go into the matter of my contribution, there are a few things I need to address. And first of all is the whole issue of referring to the stepchild and the stepchild by the member for Naparima. I want those on the other side to understand that we operate as a team. We don't have any stepchild. We have a cohesive team working in the best interest of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, there's another issue I wish to address. Yesterday, someone had an issue about a $500,000 allocation to the official residence of the Prime Minister in Tobago. Leader of the opposition. Madam Speaker, $500,000 to renovate a building they left to decline. But look at their spending trend, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, 29 foreign staff. We now have 1. Monthly salaries amounted to over $400,000. Where? At the office of the Prime Minister. Under who? Their watch. We have, Madam Speaker, one or just around 100,000. Yeah. Accommodation over $186,000 per month. What? Under our watch, $45,000 per month. What? Madam Speaker, it goes on, you know. Children's Christmas party, over $1 million. We had a children's Christmas party. We catered for almost all the children in our community residences. They were well entertained, well fed, well taken care of. And you know what? We did not spend $1 million. We spent just $452,000. Madam Speaker, I'm going to leave that there for a bit because I really want to get into the matter of my contribution. I want to start off by really thanking the people of Tobago East for their faith in me. And I want to thank my constituency staff for their support. Madam Speaker, I also want to thank the Honorable Prime Minister for trusting me with the responsibility of catering to 2 vulnerable sects of our community, our children and our women, and also believing in my ability to manage the transition from the Ministry of Tobago Development back to Central Administrative Services Tobago. Madam Speaker, I would not have been able to fulfill my mandate without the support of the public servants and the contracted workers at the Office of the Prime Minister, Central Administrative Services Tobago, Gender and Child Affairs. And Madam Speaker, I would not have been able to do it without the support of my colleagues in this honorable House and the parliamentary staff, and for that I'm eternally grateful. Madam Speaker, I want to thank my family and my friends, and in particular my husband and my children. On the dark days of heavy criticism from the media and from the public, I'm grateful that I have the comforting arms of my husband to return to, and the reassuring smiles of my 3 children. Madam Speaker, I want to extend my congratulations to Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to extend my congratulations to the Honourable Minister of Planning and Member from Aruka Maloney and our Minister of Finance.
Yes. Well said.
This budget, Madam Speaker, has demonstrated the PNM government's slogan of let's do this together. The business of managing this country in a time where our revenues continue to slide downwards. Madam Speaker, I'm confident that our vision for 2030, I'm confident that of our ability to move this country forward, Madam Speaker. Regardless of what the others may murmur on the other side, Madam Speaker, we have a plan, we are working that plan, and we are doing it with finesse, with class, and with quiet confidence, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this year's budget demonstrates our deep commitment to developing this country of ours, to ensure holistic development of our children, our youth, and all our adults, including the vulnerable in our society. Madam Speaker, we understand that effective government is about caring and protecting all citizens by protecting and securing their human rights. Our Vision 2030 is therefore being built on our citizens' attributes of self-reliance, respect, tolerance, equity, inclusion, integrity, equal opportunities for the achievement of our fullest potential, individually and as a nation. I am resolute in my belief, Madam Speaker, that this PNM government will continue to display sound understanding and effective governance in these difficult times, to see our citizens and those who partner with us for the development locally and abroad safely through this adjustment period and continue to make us all proud to be Trimbagonians. Madam Speaker, I want to turn my attention to my constituency of Tobago East. My vision for Tobago East remains unchanged. My desire is that the untapped potential of Tobago East would be explored, and that with the right constitutional, legislative, and administrative framework, more will be done to facilitate sustainable development and meaningful socio-economic development that benefits all the residents and our future generations. After just 1 year of collaboration and mutual respect amongst the THA and the central government agencies, Madam Speaker, I am seeing my vision becoming a reality. Madam Speaker, I am seeing a transition in Tobago East. Madam Speaker, I am seeing a change happening, and that has come after just 1 year of the Tobago House of Assembly and the central government working together, collaborating and not fighting. Madam Speaker, the constituency office began operations in October 2015 in Argyll and in July in Mason Hall, and have served my constituents non-stop at face-to-face clinics, Madam Speaker, and also using my online MP page. Madam Speaker, persons would have visited me for a number of different reasons, with a number of different concerns, and I've always attempted to serve each and every individual coming into my space with the same level of respect and commitment. Because when I took my oath of office, I no longer saw colors of jerseys, but people I took an oath to serve, respect, and Madam Speaker, to love. Even amidst the criticism, to still love, Madam Speaker, because this job is a thankless job, Madam Speaker. I understand that, and I appreciate that, and I'm coping with it. Madam Speaker, constituents would have been referred to a number of different agencies, and they would have received help. They would have been referred to THA agencies, central government agencies, Madam Speaker, even corporate Trinidad and Tobago, and they would have received help. You know why, Madam Speaker? Because I understand it's not about me, but it's about a collaborative approach, a whole of society approach in meeting the needs of the people of this country. Madam Speaker, our Honourable Prime Minister would have given us a mandate to make a 5% contribution to a charitable organization. I have done that. But outside of that, Madam Speaker, I've continued to help those in my constituency and even those from beyond who come to me out of pocket. Madam Speaker, thus far, the St. Vincent de Paul Society Home for the Aged, the Moriah Police Youth Club, and the Hilltop Explorers would have received my 5% contributions on a 3-month basis. Madam Speaker, and for the next 3 months, the Charlottesville Police Youth Club will receive my 5% contribution to enhance their work in helping to prevent young people from entering into lives of crime and drug abuse. And I heard the Honourable Member for Naparima mention that we didn't give enough allocation to the police youth clubs. But what about states working along with NGO sectors and corporate bodies to ensure the work gets done? Madam Speaker, we don't have the set of money we had before, as I go into my Tobago twang. So we in Tobago know about cutting and contriving and making things happen. So with the limited resources, we will cut, we will contrive, but we will find innovative and creative ways to ensure the job still gets done, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to turn my attention now to the Gender and Child portfolio. The portfolio of Gender and Child now resides within the Office of the Prime Minister. The Honourable Prime Minister considered the views expressed by citizens in 2015 and thereafter insisted that this portfolio requires not only devoted attention but also careful watch and scrutiny, given that it addresses the needs of two of the most vulnerable groups in our society, children and women. Madam Speaker, let me begin with child development. This government's plan is for all children to be happy in this country so that they can achieve their maximum potential. We continue to work at implementing our national laws and the international conventions specific to child development because we understand that the family is the foundation of a society and every child deserves the right to a family, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we have taken stock of the level of abuse meted out to children each day, and we are taking action to prevent its occurrence. The rights of the child and their care and protection must take center stage if we are to achieve developed status by 2030. This government continues to build a framework for the care and protection of our nation's children. Madam Speaker, let me share with you a few of the strategies within this framework. This government continues to focus on the legislative and policy frameworks by ensuring that our laws which destroy the rights of the child and diminishes the child to the status of property are removed from our statute books. And Madam Speaker, I want to take this opportunity to really thank the Attorney General. We had a roundtable discussion with NGOs, women organizations sometime last year, and the issue of child marriages came up, and the Honourable Prime Minister was at that roundtable discussion, and he said we would treat with it. Madam Speaker, the Honourable AG would have gone out and held extensive consultations throughout Trinidad and Tobago, and I want to commend him. Madam Speaker, let me advise you that very shortly we will be bringing this matter to this Honourable House for debate and discussion because we are looking to address that age gap, Madam Speaker, to ensure that our children, particularly our young girls, are allowed the opportunity to enjoy their childhood and not be forced into early childhood marriages, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we are also focused on policy formulation for institutional strengthening, service delivery, and monitoring and evaluation to ensure the protection of all children, and most importantly, those in the care and protection of the state. We recognize that we need to change the mindset of persons working with children. In 2016, in collaboration with representatives, bargaining body, the homes, and the workers, we commenced a program to support the required changes in job descriptions of the persons providing for care of children. Once completed, we will align the job of these workers with a national standard for caring for children. Madam Speaker, it's all well and good if somebody wants to work, but if you're working with children and vulnerable groups, you must have the right training and the right attitude and aptitude, because if you go in just looking at it as a job, you'll be doing the children a disservice and those vulnerable groups a disservice. So we are working to address that, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, once completed, this will align the jobs of these workers with national standards for caring for children. In 2017, we will focus on child care training for staff employed at the homes. This training will be available for persons wishing to pursue a career as caregivers for our nation's children, but cannot be employed because they do not have child care training. We are cognizant of the fact that in situations where a child is left homeless or cannot remain in their family situation, the state must act in loco parentis. Madam Speaker, it is in light of this that we have taken steps to review the manner in which government gives assistance to community residences. Madam Speaker, we would have had extensive discussions with all the 44 homes in collaboration with the Children's Authority. And on Monday, I will personally meet with the stakeholders again because we are looking to implement a more equitable system where the homes will now be able to get assistance to help them with the direct costs for the care for child. Madam Speaker, this is revolutionary and groundbreaking in Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, we have spent $26 million refurbishing the 4 large community residences to ensure that those children in the care of the state are provided with facilities which meet the standard for their care. We continue to focus on developing, implementing, and supporting the best programs to meet the needs of those children in our 4 large community residences. And we are doing this by working with the boards, the managers, and the senior executives. Madam Speaker, just the other day I had the opportunity to meet with the Bishop of the Anglican Church and discuss ways in which we could transform St. Michael's School for Boys to ensure that the boys who are placed there get the best opportunities possible so that they can be reintegrated into society or go back to loving, caring homes, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the role of the Children's Authority remains critical to the overall framework to the care and protection of our children. The Children's Authority received an increase of $5.6 million. And I admit this may not be enough, but we will work with the authority and we'll work with the Honorable Minister of Finance to see how we can make this situation improve to ensure that the new structure they have proposed will be implemented and the Children's Authority will be able to fulfill their mandate and seek the needs of the children effectively and efficiently, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to take this opportunity to congratulate the incoming Director of the Children's Authority and give her my commitment to work with her, to support her, to ensure that together we improve the quality of the lives of our children in Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, child development has received an overall allocation of $51.3 million, an increase of $47 million to support the homes and other initiatives to children, particularly vulnerable children. We are well on our way to launching the National Children's Registry. When this comes on stream, we will be better able to allocate resources for our nation's children and plan intervention strategies for those who are most vulnerable. Madam Speaker, all our strategies will be underpinned with the child policy, the development of which we have well advanced with the help of our international partner, UNICEF. We have embarked on a nationwide campaign towards promoting the rights of a child and ending child abuse. The strategy to build awareness on the rights of the child continues through various tactics at schools, the media, and online, and they will continue and intensify. To reduce child abuse and more sexual abuse, we have commenced a program of training persons to recognize child abuse. And just, I think it was on Tuesday or Wednesday, I was in Tobago, where in collaboration with the West Indies Cricket Board, UNICEF, and the Tobago House of Assembly, we have launched the Fair Play program in Tobago. This was done previously in Trinidad. This is a program that would expose the various coaches how to identify signs of child abuse and educate them on knowing how to propose the right interventions to safeguard our nation's children. Madam Speaker, we'll be launching a series of billboards quite shortly to keep the messaging in the face of the public so that they will understand that it's not something for us to hide from or turn our backs on, but confront head on and collectively address, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, when dealing with children and vulnerable groups in society, that is not something we must politicize, but work collectively to solve. And I notice a lot of back and forth from my colleagues on the other side, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, there's a time and a place for everything. When election mode is in election mode, we could banter. But when it comes to discussing the business of the people and finding solutions, we need to put aside those political differences and really work in earnest, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, since I've come to this honourable house, regardless of who approaches me for help, my friend from Couva North would have asked me for assistance. Immediately I responded. My friend from Princestown asked for assistance. Immediately I said, Couva North has my number, call me at your convenience, I will assist. My very good friend from Kumutu Manzana would have reached out to me on a number of occasions, and I would have assisted Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, the same level of passion that I will go into helping anybody on this side of the house, I extend the same level of passion and commitment to helping my colleagues on the other side and helping their constituents, Madam Speaker. That is my commitment to you all.
That's the strength of the PNM.
Madam Speaker, coming down to the end of this year, we'll be launching two very powerful publications. One is the Book of Rights and Responsibilities, and the other is a Child Services Directory. Madam Speaker, we recognize that our people are not aware of what is available. They don't have the information, so we are bringing it to them in a child-friendly manner, in a manner that will be easy to use, so that people will know, our children will know, our parents will know where to access services, our children will know their rights, but most importantly, they understand that with their rights comes responsibilities, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, and this passion coming out comes from my grounding in a PNM party that really believes in people and puts people first. And Madam Speaker, I assume it's the same level of passion that would cause my honourable friend from Princestown to liken his leader to the Shakti of the nation. Madam Speaker, if she's the Shakti of the nation, Madam Speaker, if she's the Shakti of the nation, then my honourable Prime Minister, my honourable Minister of Finance are like Moses and Joshua in the Bible. Madam Speaker, leading a very reluctant group of Israelites, but in this case, Trimigonians, to the promised land. Madam Speaker, I'm now going to turn my attention to gender development. Madam Speaker, Moses is the member for the Martin West. And that is Joshua. Madam Speaker, okay, on a serious note, I now turn my attention to gender development. As promised in our manifesto, this government is committed to ensuring that a gender policy is in place to guide gender development nationally. This policy has been revised and clearly outlines the strategies to promote gender equality and equity. This policy is currently being considered before a special committee of the Cabinet. Madam Speaker, in the past, the issue of the definition of gender, abortion rights, and the marriage laws prevented this policy from being addressed by former governments. And I must indicate my disappointment. You see, in 2010, when we had a female Prime Minister coming in, I got all excited. I said, you know what? Maybe we should push the cause of women and a gender policy would come out. But alas, it did not happen. Madam Speaker, I give you the commitment that this government will work to ensure that something is produced, because you know what? Something is better than nothing. When I had to present the combined country report to CEDAW, Madam Speaker, this year, I was a bit embarrassed because we got knocked for operating without an approved policy. And I've given myself a commitment that when next we report, and I'm not going to wait like the others on the other side for 4, 5, 6 years and hide it and bank up and then let the other administration present. I'm going to present on time, Madam Speaker. I have the commitment and the support from the Human Rights Department of the Attorney General, and we are going to ensure that we present our report on time, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, our approach to treating with the issue of, as I said, the definitions may seem conservative, but Madam Speaker, we could start somewhere, and as we develop as a people, as a nation, and as we see the feedback, we will know if we need to address the policy in the future. But at present, we have chosen a very conservative view, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the Office of the Prime Minister has been focusing on building service delivery of the Gender Affairs Division. We would be soon commissioning a series of safe houses, and we received an allocation of $2 million. And we're going to use part of that money, Madam Speaker, to establish 2 more shelters, one for victims of domestic violence and another to provide a safe haven for female victims of human trafficking. We recognize that there's a problem, and even though they may not be citizens of our country, if they come in here as victims of human trafficking, then it is our duty to provide a safe space for them, Madam Speaker. And that is the commitment of this government. Madam Speaker, I want to quickly turn my attention to the issue of HIV and AIDS. The responsibility for HIV and AIDS from a social perspective is now under the remit of the Prime Minister of this country. This is an important area of concern, and just like gender and child, it requires critical attention. The National AIDS Coordinating Committee has been approved and will be appointed within the next 2 weeks to manage the National HIV/AIDS strategy. The committee comprises key stakeholders in the area, as well as national umbrella bodies, including trade and labor. The staff of the Secretariat has been recruited and will be led by a permanent secretary. In 2017, while the Ministry of Health focuses on ensuring the medical well-being of our citizens with HIV, the Office of the Prime Minister will focus on strategies to address behavioral change within vulnerable groups, such as marginalized youth and women. To this end, Madam Speaker, we have already started partnering with the NGOs and other international agencies to develop and implement strategies to address behavior change in those vulnerable groups in society. We will continue to look at the data available and collaborate with the Ministry of Health to prioritize those areas for focus. The completion of a situational analysis for the National HIV/AIDS policy will remain a priority area, as well as the review of the National AIDS and HIV strategic plan and policy, and the design and implementation of a monitoring and evaluation mechanism. Madam Speaker, what I've recognized is that monitoring and evaluation is a weakness, and we are looking at strengthening our capabilities to ensure that we get the best information out and develop best policies and practices for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, another priority will be the development of mechanisms to address the infringements on the human rights of our HIV/AIDS afflicted sisters and brothers as a mechanism to safeguard their rights as citizens. Madam Speaker, I want now to turn my attention to a very touchy area, because I know it's going to come up right after I sit down, and that is the Central Administrative Services Tobago. And I'm quite positive that my friend from Couva North will pounce on that. Madam Speaker, when this government took office, it was important to rationalize the portfolio of ministries in order to optimize and coordinate government services. The Office of the Prime Minister, Central Administrative Services Tobago, was re-established, and the Ministry of Tobago Development subsumed into OPM CAST. Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister entrusted me with managing this transition, and I have done all that was required to ensure the successful transition back to the original structure. A review of the roles of the Ministry of Tobago Development and its operational framework proved to be an inappropriate structure, as it brought the central government into conflict with the Tobago House of Assembly. Madam Speaker, reverting to the concept of caste to govern relationships between central services and the THA, seems far more effective and superior to the apparent duplication and waste of resources of the previous administration. In the transitioning program, Madam Speaker, there were casualties, and I have to admit that. Madam Speaker, those persons who were employed by the company established under the former Ministry of Tobago Development have been affected by the downsizing. From the inception of this company, it has been faced with financial challenges which continues to plague the company even in the winding up process. We are working assiduously with the Ministry of Finance to bring this process to a closure, whilst meeting all the legal and financial obligations to the staff who will be affected. It is hoped that this can be resolved by the end of October 2016. Madam Speaker, the Office of the Prime Minister Central Administrative Services Tobago continues to concentrate in carrying out our duties under the following areas: administrative services, prices, weights and measures, Register General, and meteorological services. Madam Speaker, in terms of administrative services, the department carried out its duties in collaboration with the Ministry of National Security, Police, Fire, Army, and Coast Guard in Tobago, the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services through the Targeted Conditional Cash Transfer Program, otherwise known as the Food Card Program, and the Ministry of Public Utilities, Tianta Kamwasa, in obtaining synergy in delivering central government services in Tobago. And Madam Speaker, I want to take this time to sincerely thank the Minister for Public Utilities. Madam Speaker, the first time I had a conversation with him post-swearing in, I asked him, I said I made one campaign promise, and that was to deliver water to the people of Hermitage. Madam Speaker, the lines are now being sanitized and tested, and the people of Hermitage, for the first time in their life, would be getting pipe-borne water. Honorable Minister of Public Utilities, on behalf of the people of Hermitage, I sincerely thank you for keeping your promises to me and to the people of Tobago. Madam Speaker, and that just goes to show when there's collaboration, because this project was a collaboration with the Ministry of Public Utilities, the Tobago House of Assembly Division of Infrastructure and Public Utilities, and the Water and Sewage Authority. Madam Speaker, there was no game showing to see who's the big man in the dance. The only issue was delivering water to the people of Hermitage, and that was done. Madam Speaker, in winding up the Ministry of Tobago Development, I want to thank the staff at Casting Tobago, because we would have had a training and career fair where persons who would have been affected by the transition were afforded the opportunity to come in and meet with potential employers and training institutions, so that even though they may be affected by not having the substantial positions under the company, options were made available through private sector and other agencies for job opportunities and training. Madam Speaker, this initiative was well received by the former employees, and it is an initiative we will continue under Casting Tobago to provide assistance to persons seeking employment. Madam Speaker, the Department of the General Administrative Services would have provided assistance totaling $70,000 to members of the public whose homes were affected from natural disasters or others untoward incidents, Madam Speaker. In addition, approximately $424,694 is given out to different NGOs to help them in social sector programs in Tobago. We also continue with the provision of airfare to persons coming to Trinidad to seek medical attention. This was done under the refund and rebate vote approved by Cabinet for that purpose. Madam Speaker, we also assisted pensioners in Tobago with completion of life certificates and helping them with encashment of checks, etc. Madam Speaker, Prices, Weights and Measures Unit continues to work in close collaboration with the Bureau of Standards to ensure Tobagonians receive fair prices in accordance with just weights and scales. whether it's in purchasing fish from fishermen or buying gas at the gas station. Officers go out daily throughout the length and breadth of the island, ensuring scales and weights are properly balanced and gas pumps are properly calibrated. This has resulted in reduced complaints of overcharging by members of the public. Madam Speaker, the Registrar General Unit continues to deliver services by providing birth, death, and marriage certificates, registration of companies, and registration of deeds and titles to lands in Tobago. The department is working closely with the Office of the Attorney General and the Ministry of Legal Affairs in bringing a solution to the land titles issue in Tobago. And Madam Speaker, I really want to thank my very, very good friend, the Honourable Member for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West. He has initiated an activity to establish a committee to review the issue of land regularization in Tobago. That committee would look at the problems and make solutions so that we could have that matter addressed in the timeliest manner as possible. So thank you, Honourable Minister for Legal Affairs. Madam Speaker, this is expected to bear fruit in 2017, as I've got the commitment that the committee will be established within the first quarter. Madam Speaker, I now want to turn to a project which I must say was started under the former administration, but I'm extremely proud of it, Madam Speaker. That is the Meteorological Services Building in Tobago. Madam Speaker, although we would have had delays in time, we have come in on budget. We have come in on budget, Madam Speaker. This building will be state-of-the-art, and it will be able to help us to, if there's a natural disaster, Madam Speaker, by some freak of nature, the facilities in Trinidad is affected, Tobago would be able to provide that service and ensure our airports, etc., remain in operation, Madam Speaker. And also it will help to improve our tourism product, because if we have more flights coming in from the Sandals project, etc., we want to ensure they land safely, and the Met Services building will provide, safe landing information in terms of real-time weather information. Madam Speaker, I know my time is running short, but I really want to address a matter that came up yesterday. I want to reflect on something the Honourable Member for Siparia said during her presentation, because it really rubbed me the wrong way, and things don't usually get to me. Madam Speaker, the member said, God helps those who help themselves, and yes, that is true. Madam Speaker, in 2015, the people of Trinidad and Tobago helped themselves by exercising their franchise. Madam Speaker, but God went on to continue helping us. He helped us by establishing a government with the competence and character to take us safely through this season of economic decline. Madam Speaker, after a time of plenty and squander, our measures may seem stringent. But would a mother squander the heritage of her children? Would a father lead his children down a path of destruction? Madam Speaker, the Honourable Member of Siparia mocked the National Day of Prayer and Thanksgiving, and the various religious leaders entreaties to God to intervene in our economic and social circumstances. The Honourable Member acted as though it was an effort in futility. I want to remind the Honourable Member that the same God the Honourable Member credits for helping those who help themselves said in 2 Chronicles chapter 7, verse 14, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear them from heaven, and I will forgive their sins, and I will heal their land. Madam Speaker, it is imperative that each and every one of us in this House as leaders turn from our ways, submit to God, truly serve the people, and He will hear our prayer. He will heal our land, and He will restore or economic stability. Madam Speaker, with those few words, I thank you.
Member for Couva North.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Just before I begin, out of an abundance of caution, I seek your leave under 4410. Thank you. Madam Speaker, first of all, let me take this opportunity to thank the Member of Parliament for supporting her stellar contribution to the rebuttal to the budget. Stellar contribution. I must say, as a young woman myself, I was very much impressed with the detail to which the leader went into to explain what was taking place in the budget and how this government has intended or will continue to fool the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, I just want to rebut a couple of points that the goodly member for Tobago East made, and I want to remind her of a couple of things. It was the former People's Partnership government that passed the Children's Act of 2012. It was the former People's Partnership government which changed the legislation to increase the maternity leave for the women of Trinidad and Tobago. It was the former People's Partnership government which introduced the baby grant for the poor and vulnerable mothers, which this heartless government scrapped. It was the former People's Partnership government which operationalized the Children's Authority in this country. It was the former People's Partnership government which collaborated and gave assistance to the network of NGOs to train our technocrats and introduce gender budgeting to the government of Trinidad and Tobago. It was a former People's Partnership government which introduced the Children's Life Fund, where all members of Parliament contributed 5% of their salaries, with the Prime Minister herself, the former Prime Minister herself, contributing 10%. Madam Speaker, under the former Ministry of Gender, Youth and Child Development, we engaged NIDCO to identify lands and structures for rent to establish transition homes, rehabilitation centers, etc. And I want to ask the member for Tobago East, what has become of these projects? NIDCO, before we demitted office, Madam Speaker, NIDCO gave the Ministry of Gender, Youth and Child Development 4 homes. And I want to ask the member, whoever will be responding after me, what has become of those 4 homes that was given to the former ministry, and what are they doing with it, and what are the intentions by the government? What has become, Madam Speaker, of these projects that we have set in motion? This government has no moral authority to talk about caring for children. None. The Attorney General delayed to give legal advice on the Children's Life Fund, which resulted in no life fund support given to the child Naveen Hariprasad, and this child passed away. Delay by the AG's office. So what are we expounding about and talking about here in this House? Who are they fooling? They have betrayed the people of Trinidad and Tobago. On top of that, the member for Tobago East talked about the promised land and this government leading us to the promised land. Trinidad and Tobago is burning at this time. We have rampant crime. I think about 3 persons, women and children being slaughtered. I need to ask this government, who is holding the serpent staff to unleash evil in this land of Trinidad and Tobago? Madam Speaker, I want to refer to some of the comments made earlier on. Now, in developing countries like ours, small island developing states, it is a known fact that the government is the main driver of the economy. And therefore, I was very disappointed in our Prime Minister, the Member of Parliament for Diego Martin West, when he made these comments at a function in Laventil, stating that we need to wean ourselves off the government. He's a very educated individual whom I respect very much. And therefore, I was very disappointed to hear this coming from our Prime Minister at that point in time. Yes, you know that, Mr. Prime Minister. Small island developing states, their economy is driven by the government. I understand where you're coming from, but at the same time, really, we need more work than we are doing right now to deal with weaning ourselves off. We are not a private sector economy. We have not created the environment to enable the private sector to drive the economy at this point in time. So that's my point. Yesterday, after listening to the Minister of Sport, I am now convinced that this government practices discrimination. And you know why, Madam Speaker? You know why? Because we sat here and we listened and we heard MPs thanking delivery ministries and ministers for houses. The member for Maruga Tableland spoke about 150 houses in the first year of governance by this government. And we have been writing letters like any other MP. We are also elected members of parliament for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. We have been writing letters. The minister has responded, and I thank him for that. But at the end of the day, there is no delivery. It seems as though there is just delivery to the PNM held constituencies. And I am very offended by that, Madam Speaker. In addition to that, I mean, and this goes back in history a little bit, Madam Speaker.
Continue.
And we need to go back in history a little bit because, I mean, as a younger politician, I've sat here and I've looked at the Hansard from previous governments. And it has always been, when a PNM government is in power, that there's a practice of inequitable distribution of resources. It has always been the modus operandi. And I can safely say, because I, as a former minister in a previous government, would have helped these said members of parliament for the PNM held constituencies. And I'm not bashing everyone. There are few MPs who I have called during my tenure in opposition who have been able to help. But with the delivery ministries, the ones where constituents come and bombard you every week for resources like housing, water, lights, social grants, the self-help agency should be called the No Self-Help Agency. The No Self-Help Agency. Madam Speaker, and I said it in the last year in Parliament. I, as a member of Parliament, had 5 families who were fire victims, and I wrote to the relevant authorities asking, and we did all the paperwork and everything, asking for the grants to be delivered. And it took over 6 months to a year. I was informed that only up to 2 months ago, it was finally given. What would have happened to those 5 families during that time they were waiting? What do you think would have happened? Homeless, no money, clothes to send their children to school. As a member of parliament now, we have to go and find the corporate entities within our constituency to help these families. So that is just Maruga Tableland, please.
Calm yourself. Calm yourself.
In addition to that, Madam Speaker, I want to go to the budget presentation. And as I listened to the Minister of Finance ramble on for more than 3 hours last week during his budget debate, we would agree that he had very little to say and took a rather long time saying it. And I am reminded by my many constituents that the budget of 2017 offers no hope to the population, none at all. The Minister of Finance can be accused of plagiarism because this budget presentation is very similar to that of the 2016 budget, and it's a repeat of it. It's the same old strategy. It's the same old strategy of imposing new taxes, the same old projects to be implemented, the same old diversification strategies, and this has caused after 1 year.
Member for Couva.
Sorry.
Members, I would like to hear the contribution, please. Continue.
Madam Speaker, as I was saying, it is the same old strategy of imposing new taxes, the same old projects to be implemented, the same old diversification strategies, and this has caused after 1 year the loss of confidence in this government and that they cannot be trusted at all. We witness a plethora of broken promises in this budget. And of course, the people continues to be betrayed. The minister himself, Madam Speaker, is a square peg in a round hole. He can be described as the worst Minister of Finance in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. When you compare his competence to that of former Ministers of Finance like Minister Larry Hawaii, former Minister Winston Dukaran, this minister falls short in more ways than one. And Madam Speaker, I want to recommend to our Prime Minister in his reshuffle that he needs an individual with the expertise in finance and economics, not an engineer/lawyer. This government needs to get real, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to move on to some other items in the budget. Now, the member for St. Joseph should not talk, huh? The member for St. Joseph is also the worst health minister this country has ever seen. And let me just reiterate why I say that, Madam Speaker, and it was a real insult to me as a member of Parliament. Because, and the Prime Minister is very much aware of this because I had a little chat with him. On the day we had the security meetings, the minister would have known that I would have been part of that because it was all over the media. On the said day, the Minister of Health decided to come to the constituency of Couva North on a Zika awareness and did not inform my office. And even if he did inform my office, it was via an email that came late to my office. At the end of the day, Madam Speaker, as a member of Parliament, we need to afford each other the same respect. So you're coming to my constituency on a Zika awareness campaign, and the member of Parliament for that particular constituency is not there, and he comes into the constituency with 10 soldiers behind him, walking around as security. In central Trinidad, crime has gone wild. People there shooting, multiple shootings and killings. I mean, I have been liaising with the Minister of National Security and we understand what is going on. I have been asking for joint police-army patrols and can't get it or see it in any hotspot in central Trinidad, but the Minister of Health comes to Couva North with a battalion of army officers behind him. Who are they trying to fool? Who are they trying to fool? And that is what I need to understand. On top of that, since you bring up that equipment of the foggers, it was the first time in the year and under the tenure of this government I saw a working fogger in Couva North. The first time. Because every time you call the public health unit in Couva, the equipment is down. So, I mean, really, what are we doing? Spinning top in mud and fooling the people of this country? Madam Speaker, I just want to quickly go to this issue of sandal scandal. And we like to call it sandal scandals. All right? And in the budget, the Minister of Finance in his 2017 budget presentation said, original projections indicate sandals' contribution to the economy to be in the order of 500 million per year. This project is estimated to take 2.5 years to complete, according to the minister, but conflicting info from the owner of Sandals, Gordon Stewart, suggested 3.5 years. And the source for this, Madam Speaker, is July the 4th, 2016 of the Guardian newspaper. It must be noted, Madam Speaker, that Minister Young, Sandals CEO Adam Stewart, other Tobago stakeholders, the THA Chief Secretary, London, met on Monday, September 19th at the Cocoa Reef Hotel. Sandals CEO said discussions were still in the early stages, but described them as fruitful. This arrangement to woo Sandals came from Dr. Keith Rowley before becoming Prime Minister in September 2015. Minister Young said, and I quote from the Guardian September 20th newspaper, "We want to stress and emphasize at this point that it is a conversation taking place. We have not gotten down to details and the negotiations and nothing is written in stone. This is the beginning of the conversation that we intend to take to the people of Tobago and to other stakeholders." And this is the Member of Parliament for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West. Therefore, it is very premature for the finance minister to speak about sandals in this budget, since this project is still at the embryo stage. So what is the Minister of Finance trying to do here? Now, Madam Speaker, I want to flag several issues with respect to the sandals project that we've been hearing out there, and it is something for the government to take into consideration. First of all, there are environmental issues with this project that is extremely important and needs to be dealt with. Patricia Turpin, President of the Environment Tobago, described the meeting as a fantastic sales pitch by Sandals. She described the plan presented as a similar one to a previous application for a CEC in 2005, and then she further went on to say that there's been no consultation with the Tobago environmentalists. The last time a CEC was granted was in 2005, and this would have expired, and therefore a new one needs to be done. Town and country approvals, Madam Speaker, were also granted in 2000 and may be subjected to new approvals as the project is now under another entity, that is Sandals. In addition to that, the Golden Grove Estate, Boko Beach, No Man's Land, its 3 estates, is a Ramsar site, which is a internationally protected wetland. And at this time, there is no plan to show the impact of construction on the wetlands. And therefore, we really need to look at this project carefully, and the government also needs to take this into consideration. A petition and a Facebook site called Save No Man's Land has been launched, with the petition securing at least 2,500 signatures. 2, the second issue, infrastructure. In creating the enabling environment for this project to be successful, 2 highways would be built. Sangre Grande towards Manzalina and Komoto to Manzalina, and a ferry port in Toko. No costing, no timelines have been given for the completion of these projects, and yet still we have our ministers out there talking about Sandals in 2.5 years. How are we supposed to realize this if you cannot create the enabling structure to allow for this project to bear fruit? Infrastructure upgrade works will be needed in Tobago. WASA has now been instructed to upgrade the supply and a desalination plant to be established. TNTech upgrades are also necessary, and again, no costing, no timelines are given. So I don't think that they're very serious about this project. The third issue, Madam Speaker, that I need to flag is that of funding. No funding approved as yet, as negotiations have not yet started with the IDB for the 750-room hotel. The fourth issue, land. Currently, the Golden Grove Estate is owned by Angostura Holdings, which is a matter of contention, especially after the Coleman report raised issue on the sale of this asset. Sandals' proposal is for the 3 estates of Golden Grove, Boko Beach, comprising 600 acres, with No Man's Land being on the seafront of the Golden Grove Estate. Sandals originally focused on No Man's Land, but the Chief Secretary, Mr. Orville London, said that this will remain a public space. 5, tax concessions, which is most important, because this is a government that like tax and like to introduce tax and suffer the poor people. Given a 25-year tax holiday to Sandals, has seen decreased revenues for other islands. Public spat between Sandals and the Antiguan government, where Sandals is collecting a sales tax and keeps 65% of the yields. The Antiguan government is now in a public spat with them and trying to change this. Sandals does not pay any direct taxes to the government. No taxes on imported capital items, none on food and beverage, and none on items for upgrade works to resort. Consideration must be given as to whether the economic impact of permanent tourism jobs created would outweigh the tax concessions Sandals is likely to demand. And this is something that is very, very important that we need to consider as a government. I want to urge the government to continue to have its stakeholders consultations, especially with the people of Tobago, because we do not want to see them robbed of a precious natural resource to be made into a money-making venture that will only benefit the owners of Sandals and not to the people of Tobago. So that is something that we need to take into account, and I hope that whoever is responding on this Sandals project can give us a little more insight. Deputy Speaker, I also want to focus, Madam Speaker, sorry, I want to focus on the THA budget for the year 2017. And the budget for the THA for this year is, of course, recorded to be $2.45 billion. Let me just get it here. Yes. So in 2016, the budget for the THA was $1.9 billion, and in 2017, it is $2.5 billion, with an increase by $79 million, and that is, of course, for the recurrent expenditure. But when you look at the budget items and the votes in the budget estimate, you would see, for example, under Head 2, Goods and Services, increases in contract employment by $36.3 million. $36.3 million. You look at short-term employment, there's an increase by 7.1 million. And we need to ask the question, who is going to be created? The THA is going to be creating jobs for who? We know that the THA elections is very near and looming. And this can be a political strategy. And it can be utilized, of course, to get votes.
We have no money.
The Studley Park quarry operation has been increased by 4.5 million, and the question begs, isn't this entity a profitable company? Why is there a need to increase by 4.5 million or give 4.5 million to the operation? When you look also at Head 3, minor equipment purchases, vehicles, office equipment, and furniture, there's an increase by $13.7 million for this recurrent expenditure. So when even you look at, and you know, as the member for Siparia said in her contribution, the devil is in the details when she started to relate some of the information from the budget estimates coming. In total, Madam Speaker, when you look at the development program expenditure for the THA for 2017, the total expenditure is $288,590,000. But when you look again at the details, you are seeing that for the productive sector, which includes agriculture, forestry, fishing, production, and marketing, got no funding under the development plan. And you would have seen an allocation for 2016, but nothing for 2017. And again, the question begs, how are these projects to be funded, or are they going to be discontinued? Because these projects would also speak to the diversification of the Tobago economy. Economic infrastructure, you are seeing a decrease in funding by 80 million. No funding for the extension services, and you have no funding for fishing, which includes projects like the beach and landing facilities, the Boko Reef Marine Park, fishing facilities at the Pigeon Point and Delaford, commercial tilapia prawn production. No funding or research and development in agriculture and fisheries. Tourism, which is most important for the island of Tobago, there's a decreased funding for tourism by 24 million. In 2016, it was 26.2, and in 2017, it is now 1.5 million. And we're trying to promote Tobago as the next tourist destination in the Caribbean. We want to bring down sandals, and in the meantime, we're taking away the funding when it comes to tourism and expanding that sector. And very important projects are being affected. The Store Bay Beach Facility, Mount Irvine, Fort King George Heritage Program. However, we have seen an increase of business services by 12 million. Transport and communication has also decreased by 125 million. Sea transport, and these days we're hearing a lot about the ships that are, the ferry service that is going across to Tobago and stopping it for 4 days. And you are seeing here that for sea transport for 2017, there is no funding for the construction of jetties at Studley Park and Charlottesville. In health being so important to the welfare of the people of Tobago, we are seeing a decrease in funding by 15 million. Housing and settlement, which they like to complain about, Tobago needs housing. Another decrease in funding by 38 million. Recreation, sports and culture, yesterday the Minister of Sport got up and elaborated and made a spectacle of himself talking about sport, tourism, and culture and what they're doing, and let's all do this together. And you are seeing a decrease in recreational sport and culture by 37 million. In 2016, it was 43.3, and in 2017, it is now 7.7. For youth development, now this PNM-led government likes to pride itself in dealing with young people and being youth-oriented and youth-friendly. There is no funding in the 2017 budget for youth development in Tobago. Can you tell me what is going on? But we are seeing an increase in funding for equipment and vehicles and contract employment and, you know, this kind of politicking that takes place. Correct. In addition to that, Madam Speaker, I would also like to speak about, there were views and opinions coming in from other stakeholder groups with respect to Tobago and the allocation for the budget. And these were some of the opinions. The Minister of Finance admitted that after 16 years of PNM in Tobago, only 19% of the Tobago labor force has tertiary education. You will recall that when the government wanted to justify a restructuring of GATE in the midterm review, the government indicated that GATE had surpassed its national target of 50% of the labor force with tertiary education, and that Trinidad and Tobago was at 55%. Madam Speaker, the sad truth is that Tobago at 19% has yet to achieve this target and is nothing for the minister to boast about. In fact, after 16 years of the PNM in Tobago, the strides in education seen in Trinidad has not yet reached the Tobago shores in the same proportion, if at all. Tobago strides can also be measured in wastage. In Tobago, Madam Speaker, over the last 16 years, the PNM presided over at least 3 projects that were characterized by massive cost and time overruns. The Shore Park Cultural Complex started in 2006 with a budget of $196 million, and to date, the budget has exceeded $1.1 billion, and the project is incomplete. And they want to talk to us about corruption?
Repeat that word.
Shore Park Cultural Complex has exceeded $1.1 billion, and it remains incomplete since 2006.
That is your legacy.
The Scarborough Library commenced in 2003 with a budget of $30 million, and its cost to date is $300 million, and it was only completed in 2013. The Victor Bruce Financial Complex commenced in 2002 with a budget of $30 million, and its cost to date is $116 million, and it was completed 10 years later in 2012. We remind that the airport terminal, these are comments from Tobago people, you know, they're very concerned.
They don't listen to
They're very, very concerned.
They consult with themselves.
Now, let us remind the minister that the airport terminal has been significantly refurbished within the last 8 weeks, and another refurbishment, other than causing discomfort to the traveling public, is a mere plaster on a sore. Tobago's airport does not need another refurbishment. Tobago needs a new airport, an efficient air bridge, the prioritizing of the Tobago customer who is making use of the local transportation system, as well as the visitor who complain about the inefficiencies and unreliability of the domestic route and cite it as a large negative part of their island experience. The minister remains out of touch with what is going on the island with regards to transportation. So much so that the MV Galacia will be taken off the route for 4 days to facilitate a security conference in Trinidad to the disregard to the commuters and businesses needing to convey cargo to Tobago. Madam Speaker, while there is a large amount of applicants for public housing in Tobago, 80% of Tobago have no title to ancestral lands, none at all. And this is the larger picture. It is not the handing out of houses contrary to the allocation schedule, but rather giving Tobagonians access to ancestral wealth and unlocking the ability to prosper along with the rest of the country. Tobago needs not be locked into mortgages and loans for government housing. Tobagonians need to unlock their wealth, the wealth which is their own land. Under the People's Partnership, Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Tobago Development had obtained approval from the Cabinet to do just that by the establishment of a land assistance unit. And that would have worked in collaboration with the Real Property Division of the Ministry of Legal Affairs to assist Tobagonians in obtaining title. This initiative was destroyed when the ministry was closed, and I've been advised to make a plea to the Minister of Legal Affairs to see how best we can get this unit going so we can deal with land titles for the people of Tobago.
Tobago vote for that.
Madam Speaker, the allocation to Tobago in 2017 is 2.354 billion, which is noticeably less than the 5.3 billion the THA requested. The THA had projected its recurrent expenditure alone at 3.209 billion. Central government responded by allocating 2.45 for recurrent expenditure. The THA also projected that its development program required 2.3 billion and that CPEP required 80.3 million and URP required 54 million. Central government ignored the development request completely and only allocated 20 million to URP. What does this massive shortfall tell us, and the Tobago people are asking? Why were the Tobago projections so roundly disregarded and rubbished? Is that the government feels that the PNM-controlled THA has grossly, negligently, and maliciously inflated Tobago's needs? If this is so, then the Tobago allocation signals the government's lack of confidence in the THA estimates and a lack of confidence and trust in their political partners across the water. Or is it that the PNM have once again, having extracted what they wanted from the Tobago population, have no further use for Tobago and have adopted the old Williams approach of let them eat grass?
Let them eat grass.
What can we expect? Mass unemployment in CPEP and URP since the THA now has 100 million shortfall in this area. A stalling of all development. You try to patch a pothole, and when you can do that, then talk. A stalling. No, and it's a good thing he spoke, because Ramdial West knows that I have been writing to him for the past year, and he has the discourtesy of responding to MPs in the most low levels. Low levels. You, Madam Speaker, and social media is so important. You would have seen my colleagues from Naparima, Tabakit, Couva South, Princestown put up the letters that this Minister of Works and Infrastructure sent back to us as MPs when we asked for help. Again, I want to add to the chorus that this is the worst Minister of Works and Infrastructure this country has seen. And you know, and this is a very, very important issue. The elderly woman, what's her name, Miss Sumai from Shoguana's West, who lost her life. Yes. She was impaled on an incomplete box drain in Shoguana's West in John Peter Road. Do you know that those residents and even the Member of Parliament has been writing to the Minister and speaking to the central sub-offices to complete some of these projects? It is a very sad day in Trinidad and Tobago where and when a citizen loses her or his life over an incomplete project. Under People's Partnership government, that would have never happened. Nothing, you know, Madam Speaker. The entire country was shut down for a year under this government. No stimulation of the economy. None at all. And then we have ministers in their ivory towers and their arrogant behavior responding to elected members of parliament in this kind of behavior. I mean, really, I make an appeal again to the member for Diego Martin West. He needs to clean up house and get some competent people and some responsive MPs. Back to THA, Madam Speaker. So I was speaking about the mass unemployment in CPEP and URP, since the THA now has 100 million shortfall in this area. a stalling of all development projects since the allocation is non-existent, a shortfall of 2.3 billion. Development projects that will have to be axed will include, and I'm going to identify them, the Scarborough Phase 2, gone. The Business Incubator Program, gone. The construction of the Sanctuary Resort, gone. Infrastructural works at Pigeon Point, gone. The upgrade of Mantle Lodge, gone. The restoration work at the Fort King George Heritage Park, gone. The construction of the Tobago cruise ship berths, gone. The agricultural access road programs, Tobago, gone. The construction of the Scarborough Abattoir, gone. The construction of the Scarborough Market, gone. The construction of the new health centers, gone. The expansion of the primary healthcare facilities, gone. The upgrade of the Studley Park Integrated Waste Facility, gone. The construction of the Scarborough RC School, gone. So, Madam Speaker, who is in charge here? The member for Tobago West, in her maiden contribution as a Minister of Government, stand up and say, we in charge now. We in charge. Or let's stay quiet. We in charge. Who in charge? This minister.
Member for Couva South. Members, the behavior is becoming a bit intolerable. Could you all please observe the rule with respect to silence? Continue, please, Couva.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And it's a very passionate presentation from me here today because I am sorry. I am not taking excuses from this government. They've had a year to wean themselves into government. And I am not really seeing anything at all that they can be proud of to stand up and talk about today in this House. Tobago West, as I said before, got up and said we in charge and we in control. I wonder if Tobago West looked at her budget estimates. I wonder if she looked at her budget estimates. From 80 million something in 2016, it has now gone to 69 million. The one state agency that was under her purview, the Zoological Society, has now been moved back to the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries. The TDC has seen a decrease in funding to up to 30 million. What are they going to do with that?
What is she in charge of now?
She's in charge of nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
So, Madam Speaker, let me just say here, you know, and it's very, very obvious and apparent that on the ground out there, people are speaking and they are saying it as is, that they have been duped by a PNM propaganda. In 2015, they were duped by the PNM propaganda. They gave this government a chance, and now they're sorry that they gave this government a chance because nothing is happening in Trinidad and Tobago. Now, Madam Speaker, I want to refer to the Daily Express, Friday, 30th September 2016. Tourism Minister deaf to Tobago distress call. Tobago Minister deaf to Tobago distress call. And it may, St. Joseph will have to diagnose that.
Members, please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I just want to quote parts of this article. So they went on to say and describe, I think the minister had a full-page ad marking World Tourism Day. And the ad copy and contained the lyrics extolling our Twin Island paradise. And it spoke about the theme was assuring that accommodation be made accessible to the differently abled or persons with disabilities. In a single unspecific reference to her one-year stewardship, Ms. Cudjoe claimed, I have reinforced the importance of the tourism industry and its potential to become a significant foreign exchange earner. And the critique here is that the minister passed up an opportunity to account for her efforts to attract to this country tourists, both differently abled and other. And almost at once, a distress call came from Ms. Cudjoe's own constituency that had the effect of debunking her attempt to portray Tobago tourism operating in any kind of paradise. A noted player in the island's hospitality business, Jacqueline York Westcott, executive chairman of Mount Irving Bay Hotel and Golf Club, voiced only desperation. We are on our knees right now. There are no tourists. We have no airlift. Such an on-the-ground picture of the tourism reality as experienced by a hands-on Tobago operator sharply conflicts with the hot air rhetorical claims of Ms. Cudjoe. And of course, it went on to speak about the state of the Ayanna Robinson International Airport and other issues that needs to be dealt with. So, Madam Speaker, my point is not even the people of Tobago, where this minister is a member of parliament, they have even lost confidence in her and her ability to perform. Madam Speaker, I just want to go back a bit to the member for Tobago East, who said that she was very disappointed in the member of parliament for Siparia because to her it seemed as though the member was making a mockery of the National Day of Prayer. And that is so untrue, and I want to debunk that statement and say no. That is not what the honorable opposition leader meant. What she meant to say, of course, was that we also need to help ourselves as citizens. We also need to help ourselves. So just praying alone won't make the prices of oil and gas increase. We have to do the work behind it and take action. And this is what this government has failed to do. A government of all talk and no action.
Talk and tax.
You know, and I want to remind the government that you knew and that you are aware, and the leader still says it. And it's one of her best phrases and her most liked phrases where she puts God in front and walk behind. A famous phrase. So for the member for Tobago, he used to come and say, oh, it was a mockery and all of that. Total foolishness as far as I'm concerned.
Disingenuous. Unparliamentary.
Madam Speaker, going back to tourism and, of course, what is happening at this point in time, I also want to make reference to the public sector investment programs of 2017. And the minister would have put into this program an investment of 83.2 million for the tourism sector, which, of course, Tobagonians are saying is not enough. They would have also made an allocation of 0.5 million for key components of the project to establish the authority to oversee the licensing and regulation process. They spoke about hosting 5 consultations with stakeholders to identify the proposed new system of licensing and regulation. The minister also spoke about licensing of tourist operations, visitor relationship management system, and of course this project is estimated at a cost of 2.65 million. An allocation of 0.3 million for the continuation works of the repainting of a shed, of course to deal with the passengers arriving from the cruise ships and all of that. With respect to the Maracas Beach Facility Project, funds in the amount of 51 million will be provided in 2017 under the IDF, and of course works will continue there. So, Madam Speaker, I think that in Trinidad, when you look at the domestic tourism product in Trinidad, yes, we have our beaches, yes, we have Carnival, yes, we have 1 or 2 cruise ships docking in and out from time to time. At the end of the day, we have no proper data, though, on tourist arrivals to Trinidad and Tobago. And we would have heard Tobagonians speak about tourists coming in, domestic tourism, and international, of course, tourists from other countries. There's no real data with the numbers so that the government can be guided. But in addition to that, right here in Trinidad, Madam Speaker, we have an emerging culture and heritage tourism aspect that we need to take advantage of. No longer do we just get tourists for Carnival. We have people coming in for Diwali. We have people coming in for Jose. We have people even coming in for other religious celebrations, Borrow Day, all of that. So we need the Ministry of Tourism and this government to take into consideration to develop cultural and heritage tourism. The economy can be diversified by that. But when you look at the budget estimates, only 2 million has been allocated for the upgrade of local tourist sites for this fiscal year. So as a member of parliament in my constituency alone, I have the Temple in the Sea, I have the Indian Museum, I have the Exchange Temple, which is over 150 years old. It's all dirt and all of that. It remains in its original structure. What is going to happen if I, as an MP, write for funding to upgrade these heritage and cultural sites? I can't expect much, can I? And when we speak about tourism, the only thing this government seems to be speaking about that would generate a different revenue stream is sandal scandal. That's the only thing they're talking about. And nothing has been put on paper. It is just initial talks, as reported by the ministers themselves. Initial talks and nothing. So before this project is realized, considering all things are done properly and all of the factors are taken into consideration, would be another 5 to 10 years, we assume. So, exactly. So the jobs and all of this. So that is why I said before that it was rather premature for the Minister of Finance to speak about a 500 million revenue generation when nothing has been done with respect to this project. Nothing at all. So please, Mr. Minister, do not fool the people. Do not fool the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, I want to go back to some constituency issues before.
Remember, for Couva North, your time has expired. You're entitled to 10 more minutes. Do you intend to avail yourself of it?
Yes, Madam Speaker.
You may proceed.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, within the constituency of Couva North, and I go back to that, I want to flag a very important issue that can develop into a potential, I don't know, bomb for the government. Conflagration. Yes.
Thank you.
The fishing industry in Trinidad and Tobago is severely under threat. It's severely under threat, and I'll explain why. In the constituency of Couva North alone, I have 3 fishing communities: the Orange Valley, the Carly Bay, and of course the Brickfield area. There are 30 trawlers at the Orange Valley area, 65 boats, and 120 vendors. Only 6 to 7 trawlers offload per day. Each trawler sells about 5,000 pounds of fish per day, and approximately 20,000 pounds of fish per day from trawlers alone. The main fish market in the country is the Port of Spain wholesale market. And of course, we have had the Orange Valley Fishermen's Association, and the Orange Valley wholesale market is now the biggest wholesale market in the country, as sales surpasses the sale at the Port of Spain fish market. He said the majority of the fishermen on the West Coast sell at Orange Valley. Now, fish exports are unaffected. Now, we would have seen in the past couple of months the oil spill, and then we would have had fishermen and friends of the sea making comments and, of course, intimidating the population of Trinidad and Tobago, saying that the fish is not good to eat based on their samples sent for testing and all of that. We would have had the Minister of Agriculture come in and offer compensation on the approval of Cabinet of $1 million to the fishermen of the Southwestern Peninsula, right? But, Madam Speaker, I want to say that this sort of event, and this event perpetuated by Fishermen and Friends of the Sea, has seen a decline in sales in the entire fishing industry in Trinidad and Tobago. In one fishing community with 120 vendors. You know what they said? MP, our fishes are standing up in the market. Nobody is buying fish. Nobody is buying the shrimp because of what is going on. And when they made requests to the minister, I made requests on their behalf to the Minister of Agriculture to meet with him, to talk with him. Again, he has seen it unfit to not respond to my request as a Member of Parliament. And I have sent that across to him. The fishing industry is in the verge of collapse in central Trinidad. Fishermen are out of work, the vendors, the citizens, the populace, they're not buying fishes.
Sipping beers and liming.
So, Madam Speaker, I would really want to make an appeal here to the Minister of Agriculture, of course, to get his act in order and, of course, give me some consideration down in Couva North to deal with my fishermen. Otherwise, you know what? Reshuffle him too.
You looking to make a line?
Get him out of there. Take him out of there. You know, I mean, do what you have to do to find the required competence for the respective ministries. Do what you have to do. They have so many good qualified people out there. Bring them in and let them assist the government in helping them do their work. Another issue I would like to speak about is the incomplete ECC center in the Orange Valley area. Minister of Education, the ECC iron structure is up, and I would really like to see that completed in this fiscal year. The steel frame is up, yes. So there's been no work over the past year, so I'm asking kindly that you give consideration to the ECC center. And again, I want to reiterate my issue with crime in Central. I know that the Minister of National Security made the announcement today that there's going to be an establishment of an army base in Central Trinidad, and I thank him very much for that. That is what is needed at this point in time, because the police service needs the support of the Army and the Coast Guard in Central Trinidad. And it is not because of the hotspot of enterprise and the shootings and killings. We want to prevent other communities becoming like that of enterprise and other hotspot areas. So we need to practice some prevention. You know, they say prevention is better than cure. We need to implement the strategies now so we won't see this, this gang warfare take over other communities. So we're very, very concerned, Madam Speaker. You would have heard from my previous colleagues, Member for Parliament for Tabaquite, Member of Parliament for Naparima, Princestown, have all spoken about this vague budget, this betrayal of the people that we are seeing here. I mean, economists far and wide are commenting on this budget, and I just want to make reference to a couple of thoughts that has been out there. And I want to refer to, of course, what they're saying about the economy and finance and the economy. And what they're saying is that we need a radical change in the economic environment with fresh ideas to enhance innovation and foreign exchange earnings. This certainly was not the case. It is almost a replica of last year's budget, as I said before. Expenditure was, of course, nothing in terms of what took place in 2016. The budget promises to boost our exports, our earnings of foreign exchange, attract FDIs, and engender the growth of SMEs. It simply promises to continue to stifle the economy through taxes and lowering the fuel subsidy. There are no concerted efforts for diversification, and sectors that have great potential to grow in their competitive advantage, like the manufacturing and the agricultural sectors, have been largely ignored. Agriculture. With respect to agriculture, Madam Speaker, the tax break promised to agro-processors was essentially a rip-off of last year's budget and the mid-year review. Measures were promised to boost the agriculture sector, but were not delivered. What promise do we now have that they will implement these strategies in this fiscal year when they haven't last year? And that is why I speak about betrayal of the people, because what was said in 2016 was not implemented and delivered, and it's the same rehash that has come in to 2017. They are promising a tax break to agro-processors if 75% of ingredients used are local. Where did they get the 75% value from? Is it viable? Some agro-processors may not use this much local produce, as part of their processing involves using foreign produce, simply because they are not available locally. No measures have also been put in place for pilfering of agricultural produce. Madam Speaker, I also want to make reference to the budgeted oil price of $48 to $50, and the economists out there are saying that it is too high, that a price of $40 should have been used. And again, their opinion is that it is a ploy to tap into the HSF again, where the prices are very volatile. So it is probable that prices will decline. If it does not decline by over 10% of $48, which is highly likely, then they will not hesitate to go into the HSF and continue to draw on our buffers. As the current legislation is that once the oil price is at least 10% below budgeted, then they are allowed access to the HSF. So we need to look at this carefully and monitor their actions with respect to the HSF. Debt, Madam Speaker. The minister also needs to carefully strategize how they plan to lower the debt-to-gap ratio, which is now over 60% of the GDP. And this comes from the source UE economist in the Trinidad Guardian. We have reached a debt to GDP ratio a little over 60%, which, by convention and economic literature, suggests that we have entered into a danger zone. If we have reached the danger zone, it means we must be very careful about how we spend going forward and how we borrow. One of the reasons for being downgraded by the international credit ratings, Madam Speaker, was our growing debt. So it is imperative to set a carefully thought out plan for debt reduction in the coming years. Increasing our debt levels to this extent will deprive the country of investments in the future, as the same monies that should be used for national development will instead be used to service debt. This will also clearly lower national savings. Another comment on the saving bonds. The government is offering bonds to the public.
The speaking time has expired.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Member for St. Nancy's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is an honor and a pleasure to rise and to join this budget debate today. I want to congratulate first off the Ministers of Finance and Planning for a budget that really maintained focus on shaping a brighter future, transformation and growth. Amidst what I know must have been a cacophony of conflicting demands by various interest groups and individuals. Madam Speaker, may I ask for your leave under Standing Order 4410. Thank you. And Madam Speaker, as I refer to cacophony, let me just compliment the member for Couva North for really having shown that she has honed the art of cacophony to a science, a fine science, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Couva North, I want to ask a question. If you all care so much about the children, why is it that you all have stopped contributing to the Children's Life Fund? Madam Speaker, I hear so much about it. I want to ask something. I want to ask something again.
Time, but let's give the honourable member the opportunity to make her contribution.
I want to ask, if the member was so full of righteous indignation, she mentioned the serpent staff, righteous indignation. Did you not hear the member from Tobago East say that the 4 safe homes would be commissioned? Why would you stand and say that it would not be? Misleading the population. Didn't you hear her say that the domestic violence registry was launched on April 15, 2016? Madam Speaker, what is happening on the other side? Is the serpent staff causing problems? Now, we know that a serpent staff was used for healing. But the way the honourable member mentioned it with an ominous tone, we wonder, is there a serpent staff on the other side being used for other purposes? We have to wonder. Madam Speaker, I want to remind the Parliament again that the Honourable AG now, when in opposition, reminded the UNC government that we were not ready for the proclamation of the suite of children's legislation. The then UNC AG insisted, and as soon as he was unceremoniously removed from office, he proceeded to bring lawsuits against the state for the same legal requirements that we were unable to fill, which he was reminded about in the first place, and he's asking for cost. I want to ask members on the other side, how much money did the former AG make from the state, and how many children could have been helped? How much medicine could have been bought? I want to know, because you see, the hypocrisy has to stop. I want to bring to the attention that the Guardian, today's Guardian, published the speech of the opposition leader. Very good. And they were so sure that they could not print it as it is without putting a disclaimer, that they put it in a big yellow, showing the inaccuracies. What I say? Plainly incorrect. That is some of the terms being used. Can we trust what is being said on the other side? Why are you attempting to mislead the population? And let me ask one last question. Why is the UNC so against Sanders? What is the problem? Is it that the development it will bring is too good for Tobago? Is that the problem? Is this the same government that was trying to appropriate almost all of the county lands in Brechin Castle to a sugar museum and a resort? So the resort is good for Brechin Castle. Is it that a resort is not good enough for Tobago? Is that the question? The Shore Park facility, that is incomplete. Huh? The Shore Park facility, is that incomplete? Member for Couva North, do you live in Tobago? Madam Speaker.
Member for Chaguanas West. Now, while I understand the enthusiasm of the various sides to support their speakers, and I no way want to interfere with that, it cannot be at the expense of the disturbance of the House. Continue, please, member.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Before I get into my speaker, I have one thing last to say about this. We have 2 MPs and 12 assemblymen in Tobago. PNM, all. UNC, none. So, some advice to the UNC. Don't hurt your head about Tobago. The PNM has it covered. Enough about that, Madam Speaker. I know the tea break is approaching, so let me get into my contribution and give my account to the nation. In his budget presentation, the Minister of Finance took the time, Madam Speaker, to contextualize the budget against our economic position. And I just want to review what he said. He said that between 2014 and 16, the price of oil fell from $93 to $27. There was a 92% decrease in petroleum revenue, 19.3 billion to 1.7 billion. 35% decrease in revenue from 57 billion to 37 billion. And I think it is worth repeating because it seems as though the country is not understanding the gravity of the situation. I want to quote the Minister of Finance. He says, by no stretch of the imagination, therefore, can we continue to spend money that we do not have without regard for the consequences. In these difficult times, it cannot be business as usual. And Madam Speaker, against this backdrop, I want to say that investment in community development, culture, and arts is more critical now than it has ever been. And I'd like to proffer 2 reasons why I'm making that statement. And the first is, engagement in community development and the arts builds a culture of resilience. In our present economic situation, it puts a pressure on our citizens. They can become discouraged, demotivated, negative, cynical. And our citizens are the ones that take our country forward. And so when this happens, we are just going down into a downward spiral. And we will only survive this type of situation, as we have survived before, by becoming adaptive, creative, innovative. The MP for Naparima, he referenced what happened in Naparima when the carony closed down. That was a negative situation for them. But I'm sure you would agree with me that adaptivity, flexibility, those are the things that took those citizens out of the situation. And so we must be resilient, and that's what being resilient is. We have to be able to bounce back, as we say in our colloquial terms. So that's a local example of what can happen when you have resilience. And having established the importance of resilience, how can we generate it within our society? How can we be positive in times of adversity? And the literature is replete with examples showing that investment in arts and culture citizens becoming more involved in community development, getting involved in solving the problems of the community can be one of the ways to drive resilience. I want to carry our minds back, Madam Speaker, to remember the time of the 1990 coup. It was a hard and a bleak time for our country. And if there's one thing I remember, I was in school at that time, there was one thing that used to lift our spirits at that time. And it used to be played like an anthem over and over. And if I ask, what song could you remember from that time? I'm sure everyone could remember that song, Let the Flowers Bloom Again. They played it over and over. There was another one, We Will Come Back Good as Ever. And that was a strategy to ensure that the people of our country felt hope and were willing to find solutions to the problems that we faced at that time. Again, so to reiterate, engagement in community development and the arts builds a culture of resilience. And the second reason why at this time it is important to invest in community development, culture, and arts is because this is the basis of cultural development, and cultural development is a critical dimension of our tourism thrust. Madam Speaker, from Maracas Bay to Charlottesville, we have beaches. Our whole physical environment is unique. But the richness and diversity of our culture is one of our greatest assets. And our culture, when I say our culture, it is our way of life, the way we live, the way we do things. And that affects all of our development. It affects our attitude to discipline, tolerance, and production of our watchwords. And the Minister of Finance spoke about integrating our culture with our tourism development efforts. And so, the Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts, we understand what our role is. We are tasked with creating the cultural tourism product which complements the tourism agenda. And so, member for Couva North, I see you gave advice about that, but I want to let you know that we know what we have to do, and we are doing it. And I want to remind you again that as young members, if we need advice, there are many experienced members on our side with stellar records of success under their belts, and we will get the job done. And that's why the country put us here, because they have confidence in us. And so, Madam Speaker, let me get into the work that the Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts has been doing in building resilient, culturally rich communities, which is our vision for the ministry. And we envision creating an enabling environment for developing resilient communities, fostering cultural experiences, and inculcating national pride. And as we look at the work of the ministry, we can think about it in three separate areas: community development being one, culture, and the arts. Even though they are interlinked, just for clearness of elucidation, we can think about it in three different strands. So, Madam Speaker, let me begin on speaking about community development. What are our objectives? We aim to encourage strong community bonds, to inculcate a sense of community pride, to create opportunities for communities to work together to accomplish common goals, to provide support for the development of community-based organizations and individuals within communities, to create policies to guide the interaction of government and the public and private sector in community development, to provide support and guidance for community-based entrepreneurial projects, and to provide leadership in the professionalization of the practice of community development. Let me elaborate on some of the programs that take place under community development, under that theme, and then I'll go through what has been done for 2016 and how we intend to approach fiscal 2017. Let me first speak about the Prime Minister's Best Village Trophy Competition, one of the oldest programs of the ministry, Madam Speaker, that started in 1963 and was an initiative of Dr. Eric Williams, our first Prime Minister. Community groups compete against each other, 9 categories, and they span traditional dances, foods, and crafts. This is a very iconic and very seriously cross-cutting program, as it promotes strong community bonds, community pride, and events which add to our robust cultural landscape. In 2016, Madam Speaker, we ensured that the finals of the Best Village program returned to the Queen's Park Savannah to encourage more people to be a part of the event. We returned Junior Best Village, which did not take place in 2015. Over 900 young people were engaged for 3 weeks in cultural activities nationwide. And we increased the marketing of the events to ensure that more people are able to participate. In 2017, Madam Speaker, we are reviewing the Best Village program, ensuring that we cull it so that we get more impact and relevance, because it is an old program. And so over the years, things would have changed. And so we are going to ensure that it's now relevant, it's impactful. We are also going to introduce a school's Best Village so that we can discover the nascent talent within our young people and immerse them in worthwhile pastimes, mainstreaming the arts. We are also looking at the introduction of a folk theatre season. Madam Speaker, every year in Best Village, there are quite a number, over 50 excellent folk theatre presentations done by communities, planned by communities. And we want to ensure that the nation gets a chance to understand the talent that resides within our communities, and so we are going to bring that forward. And we are going to reintroduce, Madam Speaker, the annual food fair, because there has been a dearth of indigenous culinary experiences. Many people think that we are a nation of chicken and chips, but we are not that, Madam Speaker. We have the pay me, we have the local indigenous sweets, we have all the food that reflects our ethnic diversity, and we are going to ensure that that comes to the fore as part of this Best Village program. Madam Speaker, let me just touch on community mediation. We have had such a rise in community violence over the years. There's so much happening within our schools.
Leader of the House?
By agreement, yes, ma'am.
The suspension will be taken at the end of the contribution by the Honourable Member for St. Anne's East. Please continue.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So we have the Community Mediation Department, and that department is involved in settling disputes so that we can have a reduction in community violence, in the murder-suicides, the choppings, the stabbings, problems with juvenile delinquents, problems in families. And, Madam Speaker, those centers located throughout Trinidad and Tobago have been accessed over the year in 2016 by over 500 persons in communities. And I want to emphasize that if only 1/10 of these cases would have resulted in violent crime, what the Community Mediation Department has been able to do is to keep 50 new cases of crime off the street. That just if 1/10 of the cases would have resulted in crime. That same mediation program takes place in the schools. And peer mediation, Madam Speaker, 135 students would have benefited from this program. Parenting workshops also take place. We had 763 attendees over 2016. And as the member for Tobago East would have said, and referenced the St. Michael's Home for Boys, the Community Mediation Department of the ministry is deeply involved in ensuring that they put their services into helping the young boys of St. Michael's Home and making a positive difference. In 2017, Madam Speaker, we intend to acquire 2 mobile mediation centers, 2 buses that can go out into the rural communities and offer this service where there are not mediation centers. Let me look, Madam Speaker, at the effort being made to celebrate the diversity of our communities in the Community Development Days. And these are community festivals held throughout the country. And the community comes together to have this festival, to showcase their food, their craft. And so again, this is a good avenue for community tourism. And we have had in 2016, 9 communities participating. So I would have been dancing the cocoa in Tamana, and I heard the member for Kamutuko Mansanilla, you'd be happy to know that as part of these festivals, there were tours, and they did go to some of the sites that you would have mentioned in Tamana and the related areas. La Hokata Talparo Tamana, yes. Right? Even in Saparia, there was a tour, and we heard all about the legend of La Divina Pastora. The Parmen Blue Devils were a part of this tour, these community tours and festivals. And so we intend in 2017, we're going to continue this, and maybe we're going to come. They came to Maruga in Marak. Yes, they were in Marak as well. So you understand, Madam Speaker, that this has been happening throughout the country. And what we noticed is that by advertising, many people were able to go to different parts of the country to which they had never been before. And so this is a valuable addition to our cultural landscape. Madam Speaker, the community education program of the ministry is one of long-standing. And this year, in 2016, there were over 83,000 trainees who were trained for free in different skills. So you have tiling, dressmaking, handicraft, so many different areas, East Indian food, African clothing, so many different areas. And what is important is that we ensure that an entrepreneurship module was introduced at the end so that many of those people can join the small business owner or the micro enterprise industry. And what we intend to do in 2017 is to deepen this entrepreneurship focus to ensure that more people get into these areas if they want to, and that will add to the resilience of our communities, which is a part of our vision. Madam Speaker, let me talk a little bit about community facilities, community centers. They are a hub for community activities, and everyone knows how important these buildings are because they are the basis by which the community gets together, does things together, and grows. In 2016, 9 centers were completed and commissioned. We have 8 under construction and refurbishment presently, and we have 9 contracts already awarded for upgrades to centers which are in use but need to get a spruce up load. Some of them, they need a stage, a toilet, and so on, and so we have awarded 9 contracts for that. Madam Speaker, as I mentioned that, let me just say that the centers of today are different from the centers of yesterday. You would notice they are bigger, they are more expensive, and therefore, the ministry has to ensure that the oversight for the use and maintenance of these facilities is transparent and above board. And with that in mind, we have developed a policy for the governance and use, and we will be implementing this in fiscal 2017 in collaboration with village and community councils. The ministry continues to spearhead the professional development of community development practitioners, holding training courses in governance and leadership. In 2016, we will continue that in 2017, but we are seeking to partner with tertiary level institutions for accredited training in community development, because it is not just so you become a community development practitioner, and we see the need for going forward for our practitioners to be well trained and accredited. In our social intervention, Madam Speaker, we also operate 3 transformation centers, which are involved in ensuring that there are meals, basic meals for the less fortunate. 3 centers operating and over 70,000 meals distributed for 2016. In the area of culture, Madam Speaker, our objectives are to make Trinidad and Tobago a premier cultural destination, to engender a sense of national pride among our citizens, and to create policies for the cultural industry's development. With respect to cultural destinations, we have looked at what the characteristics of a cultural destination are, and we have seen that it's public art displays, public performances, concerts in various genres, abundance of festivals, exhibitions in non-museum public spaces, availability of information and cultural offerings, and the ability of the general population to participate in these events. And so we have made available to the public over 2016 tours to art galleries, museum exhibitions, public performances by our national performing entities, the National Steel Symphony Orchestra, the National Philharmonic Orchestra, and the National Theatre Arts Company. And they have been engaged in a series of free performances, some of them outside the National Library, very well attended and appreciated. We have had formal performances by these national performing entities in our performing spaces in North and South Trinidad. We have had exhibitions in commemorations of all national days, and I'm sure they have been seen in the atrium of the airport. We have been responsible for ensuring that those are put on for the general education of the population. I want to mention we have had the memorabilia of the mighty sparrow on display. And may I mention that in 2014, the UNC government made a promise to Sparrow to pay him $2 million for his memorabilia. We had to come in 2015 to meet that promise unkept. And I'm wondering, were they waiting to give me $2 million to hold his funeral? I want to say and be happy to know that the mighty Sparrow was paid the respect that he is due and was able to sing, yes, sing and dance at his presentation. That is what respect for our artists and our icons means. And Madam Speaker, we have been publishing a monthly cultural calendar so that the citizens of this country can be aware of what is being offered to them, and they can take advantage and immerse themselves in the culture of this country. In 2017, we intend to continue and expand these cultural offerings. We intend as well to ensure that we have a stronger social media presence so that we can tap into the younger generation so that they can have a chance to understand the wealth and diversity that is offered in their country. And we are also investigating the use of a cultural app to help us in those regards. Madam Speaker, performance spaces are critical elements of cultural destinations. That's where we have a lot of our performances. Over the year 2016, fiscal 2016, we have had upgrades to SAPA, this is the National Academy for Performing Arts in the South, to Queen's Hall and to Naparima Bowl. And I want to make special mention of Napa, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the first signal that something was wrong at Napa happened in 2014. By 2015, the entire facility was closed down. This meant displacement of the UTT students who were lodged there. This meant artists left scrambling for performance venues. And to compound this, instead of beginning urgent remedial works, quite in 2014 when they knew there was a problem, what happened is the lighting and audio equipment was now removed from Napa and sent down to SAPA. So Napa, pride of place, became a beautiful silver elephant, I can't say white, a silver elephant in the middle of our city, wasting away, right? No approval for those things being moved, except internal arrangements happening. So, what happened after that? In came the PNM in September 2015. When we came in, we were hearing all kinds of talks. The facility was beyond repair. Nothing could have happened there again. In less than a year, Madam Speaker, and for only $25 million, Napa has been reopened. The students, yes, students of UTT relocated. Performances are anticipated before the end of the year. And the national performing entities are going to be located in our National Academy for Performing Arts as artists in residence with the respect that they deserve. And what is worse, Madam Speaker, is that when the remedial works were done, what was discovered is that the main issues really resulted from a lack of maintenance of the facilities over the 5 years. And that in itself is hurtful because now the country has been made to pay the price. But thank God for the PNM. Napa is back up and running. And this I would mention that an interim contract will be signed with UDICOT to maintain the facilities so you don't end back up in the same place that we were in 2014. Madam Speaker, inculcating a sense of national pride, we have dropped from 31 to 41 out of 50 in the 2015 World Happiness Index report, which is published by the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network. But nobody had to tell us that we have dropped in our happiness. If we just scroll through social media, and my colleague from the Minister of Sport was forced to come out to the national public and to say something about the treatment of the athletes at the time of the Rio Olympics, we know that we've become a very vitriolic society. Too many of us are negative. And, Madam Speaker, if I may say, it is only in mathematics that a negative and a negative make a positive. Negativity does not bode well for resilience, creativity, and nation building. We need to focus on our positives and build a sense of national pride. if we think about some of our regional neighbors and we think about the pride that they exhibit in their country, then we would know that we are sorely, sorely lacking. So, Madam Speaker, we have launched National Patriotism Month to be able to inculcate that pride, a series of events that have been very successful, and we intend to continue that. In the arts, Madam Speaker, we are working to discover nascent talent, to nurture artists, to mainstream the arts, to safeguard our tangible and intangible cultural heritage. And we have had, over the year, music schools in the communities, cultural camps, offering over 1,000 children education in the arts. We have had mentoring by the masters and technical camps, 2 programs that have given 240 practicing artists the benefit of advice and mentoring from artists such as Winsford Devine, Ken Critchlow, Nasinio Gomez, masters in their fields. We have had, Madam Speaker, we have had other programs which have helped to develop the cultural industries. And we are, in 2017, we have started already and will complete the National Policy on Culture and the Arts, which has been being discussed for many years. We intend to complete that. We intend to complete a policy on museums, which will deal with all of the community museums. I know in Maruga, Tableland, there is American Museum as well, and we intend to deal with all of those community museums. There's one in Toko. We intend to deal with all of those, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I must mention the issue of grants and grant funding. I want to tell you that over the years, because of the global situation, there has been a cut in grant funding all over the world. Just recently, there's been a 70% cut to grant funding that rocked Australia. Madam Speaker, let me just quickly say that in Trinidad and Tobago, we are not exempt from this problem, and we must work together to develop new, creative and innovative solutions to sustain the cultural life of our communities. So there is less money allocated for grant funding, and I want to put all community groups on notice that we will have to, as my colleague from Tobago East said, cut and contrive, scale down your events, spend less on the non-essentials, and partner together. Sometimes too many groups in one area apply for the same thing. Partner and make your community still have the effect of the whatever function you want to have. Madam Speaker, let me move quickly to Carnival. And I want to assure the country that Carnival 2017 will be very successful as it was in 2016. We are discussing some initiatives, such as a lengthened parade route, such as reserving passage through the Savannah for a portion of Carnival Monday, so that it will have traditional mass and pan, because we want to ensure that our indigenous mass is not lost as we evolve. Madam Speaker, I want to mention, going forward, that there has been a reduction in allocation to the NCC. And that reduction, in large part, reflects the fact that the NCC, for the first time in years, does not have a loan going into the next fiscal. We met a loan, Madam Speaker, 77 million, and that has been cleared off, and the NCC has moved to ensure that they host the carnival within their allocation. I want to mention as well, Madam Speaker, that the National Commission for Self-Help has been working to assist those who need the help, fire victims, pensioners, and so on, who need the help. I want to mention here as well that they have also been cleaning house. We have discovered that there was 11.7 million expended without cabinet approval to build what we call activity centers in different areas of the country. 11.7 million. And Madam Speaker, it saddens me to say, because I'm hearing the echoes of the member for Superior speaking about equity, and the member from Naparima speaking about equity, and I'm hearing the echoes of equity. But when I look at the list of activity centers provided by the National Self-Help Bill without any cabinet approval, I see that out of the 12, Madam Speaker, it saddens me to see that the constituencies in which they were built were 11 out of 12 controlled by the UNC. So where is the equity? Where is the equity? And these centers, built without approval, were handed over to members of parliament. Centers, not on our ministry, members of parliament, 3 in one constituency and none in others. Madam Speaker, how could that be fair and equitable? And I have it here in front of me. I'm not making it up. I am not in a different and alternate universe. So, Madam Speaker, the National Commission for Self-Help has moved and is moving, and the ministry is moving to take charge of these centers and ensure that they are well maintained and upkept and that they are available for the use of the entire community. So, Madam Speaker, in fiscal 2016-17, the Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts will continue to work assiduously to fulfill our mission of resilient, culturally rich communities, and I must thank the staff of the ministry and my personal staff for their hard work and their service and their show of patriotism to this country. Because once we work hard, as those on this side do, we are patriots working to build our nation. Madam Speaker, let me move now quickly to my constituency. I want to thank my constituents for their support throughout the year, the constituents of St. Anne's East. We have been focusing on maintaining the quality of life in the constituency. And I want to thank the local government representatives and the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Government for helping us with the physical needs of our communities. Madam Speaker, in the last 5 years, it is no secret that St. Anne's East has been a stronghold of the ruling PNM's national movement. And because of this, in the last 5 years, we suffered quite a lot of neglect. We had serious difficulties with our roads, water, street lights, infrastructure and drains, the basic necessities that people need to live. And I'm hearing the ringing echoes of equity in my head again, and I'm wondering if equity only stands for some people in this country. Yes. But I want to thank, Madam Speaker, those who are responsible for ensuring that we have begun to receive some redress in these areas so that the quality of the physical infrastructure is improving. I want to thank also corporate St. Anne's East for allowing us to impact human development in the constituency. I want to thank the members of the constituency office who have been working very hard on our appreciation for the elderly, our seminars, who have been working very hard to assist in all of the initiatives that are taking place. Madam Speaker, as I close, I want to say thank you. The constituents have instructed me. I see Couva North's constituents instructed her. Well, mine have instructed me to say thanks to the Minister of Finance and the entire government of Trinidad and Tobago. On behalf of the aging population, thank you for the rebate in electricity bill and the old age pension. Thank you from the youth or from low-income families who can still benefit from GATE. Thank you. That is the thank you from the police youth clubs who say thank you for allowing them in February and Cantaro to be a part of that program. The North Coast says thank you to the Minister of Tourism and the Minister of Local Government for arresting that Maracas project. The constituents in the Couva say thank you in advance to the Minister of Agriculture for revitalizing their fishing depot. On behalf of the single mothers, thank you for the food cards, the school feeding, and the other social safety net initiatives so that their quality of life can be good.
Equitable distribution.
The citizens said thank you for the health care that is still free. You see, Madam Speaker, sometimes it's not what's about in the budget, it's about what was not taken out of the budget. So they thank you for the health care. The constituents of Maracas Valley say thank you for the police station that is being built. They thank you also in advance for repaving the road, the Maracas Royal Road. The farmers have said thank you for continuing the school feeding program so they have a market for their local produce. The young people say thank you to the Minister of Public Administration for the Wi-Fi on the buses and the textbooks in the schools, to the Minister of Education. The people of Sambuku say thank you to the Minister of Sport for the work being done on the Brialana Promenade and its completion. And Madam Speaker, the artists, the youth, the parents, the retirees, and I myself say thank you to the government of Trinidad and Tobago for supporting the programs of the Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts so that the entire country can enjoy the talent of our people and they have the wherewithal to develop the resilience to express ourselves and our perspectives on life through the positive channels of the creative arts. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Members, we shall take the suspension now. This House is now suspended to 5:25.
As indicated by the Speaker of the House, the fourth sitting of the House of Representatives in the second session of the 11th Parliament that takes place on Friday, October 7th, 2016, is suspended. Stay with us here on Parliament Radio 105.5 FM and the Parliament channel. We return to our coverage of the budget debate at 5:25.